All right, good afternoon, ARB. We're live and you're being recorded. You may begin.
Thank you so much, LTV. Good afternoon. Welcome to the December 14, 2023 meeting of the Architectural Review Board. As Vice Chair, I'm standing in for our Chair, Kathleen Cunningham, and she was called away with a family emergency, and we have our deepest sympathies to express to her and her family for the loss of Andrew Strong, her son-in-law, and we're thinking of them all at this time. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes of November 30th, 2023?
So moved.
A second, please. Again, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, aye. Okay, we move to the first item on the agenda, which is a historic district application, 153 DeForest Road in Montauk. It's represented by Andy Hammer and Tara Burke, and I see you both are here. This application was more recently reviewed by Member Ray, so I'll let you take it away.
The tax map number.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, tax map number 300-32-6-2. Thank you, Julie.
So this property, the Andrews Cottage, is one of the fabled 7 sister houses in the Montauk Association. It is a 2 1/3 acre property in the 100-acre association district, which is an 1880s collaboration of 2 legendary firms, McKim, Mead and White and Olmsted Associates. It is the jewel of the town's several historic districts, where the whole of the Montauk Association is greater than the sum of its parts. The applicant was last before this board in June of this year, requesting replacement of non-historic windows, removal of some porch railings, repainting the trim in an historically appropriate color, replacing non-historic brick walkway and patio with limestone pavers. At that meeting, the board deemed the changes to be modest, but wanted to seek the advice of an historic preservation consultant. The consultant was to look at the window replacements and determine historic versus non-historic windows and doors in the house. The board also wanted to see photographs of the house over its history. As some of the non-historic windows had already been replaced earlier this spring, a stop work order has been issued on the structure in April and then again, and there were some other code violations as we come into the present. However, 8 months later, we are still looking at this project as our historic preservation consultant took many months to prepare his 2.5-page review of this application, and part of the house has been open to the elements. Applicant is eager to finish the project and particularly prime and paint the non-historic windows that have somewhat already been installed in the recent additions to the structure. The background of this place is complicated. The property was in a highly altered and somewhat dilapidated state when purchased by Roberta Gossman Donovan in 1981. In 1989, she engaged Bob Hefner to prepare a 40-page architectural evaluation of the house with a view to restoring it. While she adhered to many of Hefner's recommendations, she vastly altered the north facade of the house with a large addition and new porches that were done by Francis Fleetwood Architect. Over her lifetime, she did not necessarily maintain the house up to the highest standards. Thus, the new owner found that there were much rotten wood and rotten windows. Specifically, 23 windows installed in the Fleetwood edition of the 1990 edition have deteriorated and needed to be replaced with windows in kind. They are not historic windows, as they are part of that recent addition and not part of the original part of the house. Both Hefner and the town stressed throughout their comments that later additions to historic buildings should be true to themselves and not necessarily mimic the historic structure that they are part of. Additionally, there are 3 doors in the new addition that was added by Roberta Gossman Donovan. They have deteriorated and they need replacement in kind, but they are not historic. On removing some of the first floor, they'd also specifically would like to remove some of the first floor railings, repaint the trim, Benjamin Moore Arctic seal, And that was sort of approved by the our historic consultant's recommendations. On the outdoor walls, there are 3 sconces that the applicant has submitted that are more modern in feeling, but they are dark sky compliant. Our architectural consultant asked for more historic lighting fixtures, but to be dark sky compliant, they won't necessarily be totally historic. On the last point, replacing a brick walkway that leads from the drive up to the front door and replacing a brick patio on the north side of the house, which is sunken at the basement level, adjacent to the 1980s addition. The applicant would prefer to use limestone pavers. While the patio is sunken off the basement level, it's hardly visible from any part of the property except if you're standing on it. The work at the front door is more molded 1980s bricks that are in several platforms that step up to the front porch of the house. My own view is that the limestone patio pavers are acceptable, and we could talk about the walkway to the front door of the house. I would like to give Tara and Andy and Jim, who I met with yesterday at the site, to go over anything that I missed.
Good evening, board members. Andy Hammer, as I think Chip accurately reflected the status of this last time we appeared in front of this board. None of this was deemed to be, a large project at the end of the day. Most of it was entirely compatible. A couple of things I did want to, clarify a little bit. There was a stop work order issued when the windows were being replaced. This is dating back to April, is my recollection. The windows were badly rotten. I think there are pictures in the board's file that I submitted that show, they were Pella pine windows that just didn't withstand the elements. The reason those were replaced is the owner was concerned about infiltration into the house. So, bad on the owner at the end of the day. However, we immediately submitted our application to see this thing, reviewed by the board, and we've been sort of in a holding pattern waiting for the historic preservation consultant to respond. I wanted to draw your attention to the November 28th letter that I submitted to the board that I think goes through point by point. And this is kind of an interesting lesson for everybody in some respects. Mr. Devonshire, who is the board's historic preservation consultant, seems to favor a preservation standard on non-historic features. So, the larger additions, the windows, et cetera, should be rehabilitated. Basically, we want to maintain some difference between the historic windows and the historical facade that is a part of the historic district and is integral to the historic district versus the areas that have been expanded, added to over the years. We want there to be some visible and discernible difference. Basically, we don't want to create colonial Williamsburg. And I think that flows right down to the light fixtures. The suggestion that there could be more historically accurate light fixtures. These didn't have light fixtures in the late 1800s. So, I don't know what would be historically appropriate to it. However, they're not integral or part of the original house, so we would want them to be differentiated. So the light fixtures that we submitted, we thought were a good way to do that. Basically, it's a little bit more modern of a fixture. Nobody would ever confuse that as being the historical light fixtures because they simply didn't exist. During the course of our meeting, there were a couple interesting things that came out in terms of the rehabilitation. The second stop work order was issued based on painting that was going on the site. The site has been exposed to the weather since that original stop work order was issued, and I appeared in front of the board in June. There are areas, I don't know if the photos show it, that where the windows and the clapboard had been taken off that still haven't been replaced, and the painting remains obviously unfinished. I wanted Jim Kim, who's the contractor for Men at Work, just to address the board briefly on that, because I thought it was an interesting thing I learned about how you rehabilitate and maintain these historic windows. Other than that, any questions you have of me, I think are.
Can we walk around the house, Andy? Dan, can you take us through all the photographs? This is the front facade that faces the
Yes, that's the south-facing facade.
which is mostly original. There's some issues with the second floor porch may have been slightly.
The window, the attic space, that is finished attic space on all these is original, and the first floor windows are all original.
That's the eastern side of the house looking towards Dick Cavett house. That is original, except for the far right where that tree is, that is part of Roberta Gossman's addition.
That's the Fleetwood we're talking about?
Yes.
Yes, that's the Fleetwood addition, which also included kind of a roundish protrusion on the foundation as well.
That's walking around, that's her addition right there, and the windows behind the scaffolding are the part of the 23 windows that were from 1980 that have been slightly replaced and need to all be replaced.
They have been replaced identical. I mean, they're the identical patterns, mullions, everything is identical. However, the material has been upgraded. Now the windows are no longer pine that's painted. It's a mahogany window.
And the limestone patio would be at the ground level where that dirt is.
So the windows we're looking at here, these were the ones that were replaced that we're basically approving as built. Is that correct?
That's correct. And the clapboard would be replaced. It just doesn't appear in these photos. That is tar paper that has been replaced several times just to maintain some form of weather readiness of that area of the house.
So this is the north facade. She basically, everything that sticks out from the original third floor gable is new. The room on the left, the front porch, and the more larger porch, the railings, the deck, that is all her additions from 1980.
And most typically, the McKee meat and white profile from the north-facing additions that were much plainer, so that, you can tell this is more decorative than it would have been in the original construction.
I'm sorry, just the porch to the right, that's new, but the gable and the facade behind there, that's the original porch, is that?
That is correct, yeah.
And the doors in question are in the center portion where that sort of front porch, the doors are there.
So that little balcony above and
It's
is all new?
Yeah.
Sorry, explain to me one more time, what's original?
See the third floor windows?
Yep,
Go straight down, and that was the original north facade of the
okay,
house.
so the second floor,
Everything forward of that is new,
the second floor gable on the right,
right? The front central
the
porch,
front porch
Yep.
with the terrace above, and of course the
the
new.
octagon room.
Yeah.
Sorry, this gable on the right is original?
No,
It's not?
No,
everything you see
I
there,
recall seeing that in one of the pictures, historic pictures though, I thought.
No,
Is it on the east, west facade?
I would bring Jim Kim. He actually built the additions to the property. Introduce yourself.
Jim,
Oh,
Jim Kim from Men at Work, sorry.
yeah.
So everything forward of this gable,
that's the front.
Mhm.
this was built 30 years ago with Roberta Gosman, Francis Fleetwood.
That was in
Clearly
early
states, I think,
90s, late 80s?
30 years ago.
Well,
I think
30
it was
years ago.
86.
That's like 40 years ago.
Yes, that was part of the addition that Bob Hefner pretty much consulted on with Francis Fleetwood, Roberta Gosman.
Okay.
And then Dan, take us to the western facade. So that's as you approach the house from the west.
So if you look at this, this line here
Mhm.
forward was the original house.
I get it. And on the right, that's the bluff facing the ocean, and the left is which way do you enter the house? On the left, the north?
Yes.
Yes, the north side.
And that was the original entrance, they just
I don't think
added
so.
the-
I think that was the original entrance straight ahead
I
in the
believe
middle
it
here.
was, yes.
That's correct.
Okay,
When she bought the house, there were garage outbuildings on the property, there were high retaining walls on the property, and all that was demolished and just a simple driveway was created.
So the scope of work we're talking about is replacement and renovation of windows and doors, that's one, or windows, that's one,
Doors, front doors, 3 doors in total.
okay. and,
All the windows were from 1986, just to be absolutely clear.
The paint job,
So the paint, color.
which is an historically correct color, sort of a gray taupe.
Okay.
Removing some railings, Jim, were on the front of the house on the ocean side.
That's correct.
Railings, which the consultant didn't have an issue with.
And adding a step.
And adding a step and.
What are we doing with the railings?
Taking
They were
some.
removed.
I think they've been removed, right?
They were
Yeah.
removed for painting.
Okay,
And this patio I mentioned before, the limestone patio. And then on the north side, you step up awkwardly to the house through a series of brick platforms that I think are encased in railroad ties or something like, I mean, but it's a real, you can see there, it's a real awkward approach to it. They want to, and the bricks are 1980 molded bricks, the kind you'd see on 1980 college campuses. They're not, rectangular bricks. And so they want to take that out and simplify it and make it a limestone set of steps going up.
Yeah, I think the landscape architect proposed a very neutral color. Yeah, limestone light gray, so it blends in more. The red brick really stands out and seems to be pretty contemporary.
Well, the bricks they used are very contemporary.
Yes,
Right, I would
that's
say the
correct.
brick is appropriate for the time period, though.
Traditionally over here, we worked on 5 of these houses. There was no brick patios ever on any of we've uncovered big pieces of bluestone that were used as paving when we were looking at some of the old houses.
so the limestone pavers, the limestone walkway, is that something that's like flush to grade only, or is
No,
that something like an
steps up.
architectural feature?
It steps up in platform,
Up to
step
the-
up to another platform,
road
because
entrance?
there's a huge change in grade from where that
Yeah,
tree is
yeah,
on the right to get all the way up to that porch.
So we're talking about removing the red brick and replacing cladding it with limestone?
That's correct.
That's
Okay.
correct.
And that scope goes all the way to the left in the photograph too?
That's
Like,
correct.
does it wrap all the way around the Fleetwood addition?
Here and walks all the way back up to the addition.
But not.
But on the
all
left
way
side
to
of the photo,
This,
with that
the
brick?
scaffold.
nothing. This is just,
It's
It's a
collaborative.
pile of junk.
that's a,
Am I looking at horizontal wood cladding, or am I looking at brick?
That's brick at grade.
No, no,
Left.
to the left.
that's a
No.
scaffold.
All the way
That's
left.
That's horizontal wood cladding.
Oh, okay,
That's clapboard.
okay. Now I got it. Yeah.
You're gonna leave the brick wall that supports the steps,
They're
right?
gonna leave it, it's a retaining wall, they're gonna stucco it.
Okay, and then put the
Okay,
limestone.
they're gonna stucco it gray.
I see.
So right now it's like fraternity house brick.
Yeah.
Or Roberta Gossman's really been thrown under the
Well,
reputation.
well, I will say that Roberta was very instrumental in getting this historic district
Yes,
adopted.
exactly.
She was very careful. And I mean, we can disagree about the Fleetwood addition, but at the time it was designed to be in accordance with the historic district provisions that ultimately came into being. It's consistent with, and it doesn't detract from, it's different than the historic provision, but it's not a clash. I mean, obviously that's everybody's opinion, your opinion can change over time, and some more contemporary historic preservationists would say, well, the back should be more plain. I remember having, another architect who said, well, I find that sort of offensive because it was supposed to be plain. However, at the end of the day, it was a really good example of how the review was conducted. And what we wound up with is something that I think it's aesthetically pleasing to my own taste. It might not be exactly what we would do today, but it was done in the spirit of retaining what was important at the time.
Yeah, so the Architecture Review Board didn't come into creation until 1992, after this addition was done. And the Montauk Historic District did not come into creation until 2004. So she was doing this as of right, well before anyone else was sort of looking at this.
So she was kind of the proponent of saying, hey, let's take a careful look at it and make sure. One of the big features of all these houses that are the historic element are the gabled ends. And those were not affected by this. And I think even Bob Hefner, being at a bunch of meetings with Bob when I was working for the town, that was his big concern is we have to, the facade that contains the gabled ends should never be interfered with, because that is really the prominence of the structure is viewed. The view that is probably the most historic is the view from the water as you look at the structure rather than the view from the back.
And in all the historic guidelines for this, if you're gonna do something to any of these houses, it's much more lenient on the north side of the house away from the water, and the code suggests that alterations, if they have to happen, should happen there, but not on the other three sides.
There are some photographs from the, this is June agenda. Is it, because it does explain a little better, like, or I won't say a little bit, but it gives more photographs of the house. I just wonder, I guess some of those windows have been replaced since June or since the photographs in there. Can we just pull those up, Dan?
Yeah.
Right, these. So just a few more. So this is prior to the work on the house? Replacing the windows?
No, that is prior to appearing before the board,
I
but
think
you
those
can
are
see
Kathy's
them.
photograph for the June meeting.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
that
is this, I guess we'll
primer
see if this
remains
is,
on.
if things have changed since this.
It's been painted
Okay.
a
Okay,
little.
it's been painted a little bit. Let's keep going. I mean, I now see what sort of the condition that it was at June.
See, that's a good picture of the walkway. See how those platforms kind of,
Keep going.
And those are the ones that would be limestone instead of brick.
Right, so I think there's another picture of this, keep the next one. Right, so that's tar paper, building paper right there.
Yeah.
So what would that be clad in?
What's gonna happen is it's clapboard, cedar clapboard goes back.
which is consistent with the front of the house on the
And is
on the
that-
first floor.
Is that's what, do we even know if that was like,
Yes, that was original.
Yes, that
but
was
that was.
That's the addition.
The addition, but that's what was approved
by the ARB at the time.
by the
yes.
ARB at the time, so
You can
that's,
remove
okay.
Clapboard and replace it with clapboard. That's
Okay.
exempt from ARB.
Yeah, the
review.
first floor of these houses were clapboard generally, and the second floor was shingles.
And is those windows on the second floor I'm looking at, which is the main floor, those have been painted since? Like, were these primed? And is that,
They were primed.
okay, so, but they've been painted since?
Well, we're trying to be.
Okay.
We keep on
Okay,
getting
but
stopped.
that's the prime color, they're not gonna be that, they're gonna presumably match the other.
So the urgency here is, our first stop worker was in, April. We've been trying, we pointed out when we were on site, the original windows are putty glaze windows. If they're single pane putty glaze windows, this is from the 1890s. How you protect these windows is there's glazing compound and paint. Then the paint rolls up onto the glass, keeps water infiltration coming in. It's been compromised for 10 years. So as we pointed out, you can see from some of the photographs, you can see on some of the windows, we keep on trying to re-putty, rip out the putty and re-putty and prime and paint, and then we get stopped. We're trying to protect the windows as fast as possible. Our window is short now with the winter. We were kind of freaking out that, and the owner was really upset that we couldn't protect the windows. So unless we get paint on the glass and on the windows, water just comes inside like there's nothing else that stops it. If anybody knows traditional work, putty glazed windows and all the putty glazing around the windows on the facade, on the original windows, they've been deteriorated. So they've been all chipped out and they're replacing it all. And then we keep on getting stopped.
So if you replace windows in kind on a building like this, you need ARB approval?
That's what I don't understand is we're doing maintenance.
Yeah, right, where does maintenance start, and like, where does the ARB?
So if they were intending to replace the historic windows, then, I mean, that clearly would require a harder look because historic windows can be restored. There's no question.
I
for the
believe
most
the
part, unless-
jurisdiction is based on issuance of a building permit. Replacing a window requires a building permit, therefore it requires ARB approval. However, years ago, you could replace the window. So there's a little bit of disagreement about that, but replacing a window with the identical window, you're not changing the framing, the size of the window, everything is identical to what it was before. Now triggers a building permit, hence it triggers ARB approval.
I wasn't aware of that.
So just to be clear, we haven't touched the original windows. The owner has no intention of touching it. We're repairing them. We've gone around repaired. If you go back to the earlier photos, you could see a lot of
more
primer
recent.
all over the place. We've repaired rot around the whole facade, and trying to, tighten everything up. The primer is only good exposed for a certain amount of time. So we try to rush in, and then, the owner is going through great expense too, because the primer now for the second time is, exceeded the allowable time. So we have to sand it back, reprime and repaint.
Okay, so is the proposed paint color different than what is there now?
Yes, you'll see samples of it.
I have a sample of it.
Some of the photos actually depict the final color. It's not the final
there.
coat. I believe it's the tinted primers that you're looking at. But it's to your eye. As a matter of fact, when we were there with Chip, you could see the original colors because some of the areas that were exposed, this used to be a very bright lime green on the rear of the property. So this is, the color that it is proposed is consistent with what's there right now. And the Devonshire's analysis said, didn't seem to have an issue with it, but I think it's a very pretty color. It's a little bit darker, I think, than what the ARB had approved last time I was in front of you.
Yeah.
It seems fine to me.
Yep.
Diane, you have comments?
I think it's, no, I think it's
No,
thorough.
I think it's
I
fine.
think it's fine.
I mean, in this, I'm going,
Sorry, do we have a sample or like a photograph of the proposed limestone?
yes, I had a piece.
Yes, and there's actually a full set of plans that show the extent of the work, and there was, color sheets of the proposed limestone.
Yeah,
There's
let's see
some,
the fixtures talked about. So the fixtures in which, Andy, you said were, you want them to be different for the Fleetwood edition than from the,
well, I don't even know what the Fleetwood edition had, but, I think they certainly shouldn't be historic or period appropriate, I guess, would be candles. I don't know, 1890s,
I think you're going a little farther back.
They didn't have the internet. There's no routers.
Three sconces. And
Where are these located?
they're
Are
actually on the ocean, they're actually on the ocean
the
side,
south
right,
side?
Jim? They're on the ocean side, under that
And on the
porch.
west side, I believe, as you approach the house, there are several fixtures.
By the old front door.
And those are depicted on the elevations that
Yes,
we have?
yes.
so those are two fixtures. You said there's a third?
No, the sconces are going to be repeated three times.
Repeated.
And that's an overhead fixture that's on the porch.
So the one on the left, the sconce will appear
Three times.
on, can we just see whether, is that both on the McKinney and White and the Fleetwood edition? Or just on the Fleetwood edition?
Certainly on the McKinley and White Ocean side.
No, consistent throughout the whole.
How many fixtures are there, Jim?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I think there's two or three on this.
Probably like 6.
But they're not lights that were added. They were replacing things that had
They
been
were
added.
Holly Hunt fixtures from Roberta Gossman, who was a New York interior designer.
I have to say the light fixtures are a little bit, to me. Everything else is so, you really, just compatible and fits, and the light fixtures seem to me like more of an art deco somehow element.
I went to Circa in Southampton the other day, which is now called something else, but it's the same company. You can count on your fingers how many historically looking light fixtures are in this huge showroom. They're all like this. You can go online and I'm sure find historic light fixtures, but if you look at what's available in the general marketplace, it's all gone to this more modern look. And it's dark sky compliant. A normal historic light fixture will probably not be dark.
The fixtures that were on previous, I wish we had photographs, but probably, I'm not sure. I think we could get a photograph. They were pretty much almost identical.
Yeah.
They were
Right, but
made
that
by
was,
Roy.
we've just said that
They were
was
pretty- They were pretty much the same.
pre-ARB approval. So we're now past that.
Right.
Well, and you also have to think about when is this structure visible that the historic district would, it's usually not at night at the end of the day. I mean, this is a day, the lighting that is here is pretty minimal at the end of the day. It's not flood lighting. It's just basically accent lighting that allows
Yeah,
them
yeah, I'm not
entrance to the
questioning
house.
that. I think it's it's discreet. I just think that this is a really significant property for this town, as we know, as you know. So I think every detail should be accounted for, and these are white. I mean, there's white fixtures.
No, they're copper.
They look white. Is that when they're on?
Talking about the glass?
Yeah, it's a frosted glass.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, yeah, it's like a copper metal with
Right.
frosted glass. Well, it's gonna be more subdued than clear glass.
I don't know that
I
clear
mean,
glass could be
I
dark sky.
somewhat
compliant.
agree with that, but I also kind of think, well, we're not, this is like, I try to think of these things as, are we like changing something architecture? There's ornament and then there's architecture. And I don't want to like, first of all, I don't want to start saying like what's appropriate period wise for a lighting fixture. I don't want to go down that path. And I don't want to get into saying like, well, I want to see something just a little bit better. I mean, I think I agree with the point perhaps about I don't know, like there's the frosted glass, the etched glass, but then if it's not etched, then you're looking at a bare bulb, and is that better? Is that worse? And then we start talking about, is that
If it's dark
period?
sky, it's recessed.
Is it, you know,
I just-
period of proof?
It's one detail that I think could be worked on. That's all.
But again, I see that point of view, but I also think, okay, we're not talking about fenestration, we're not talking about massing, we're not talking about railings. We're talking about a very replaceable piece of ornament. So I'd be willing to give the owner some leeway on this.
Diane?
No, I agree with Frank. I mean, I think that, I think a lot of thought has gone into this house and all it stands for.
I think we owe them a decision so they can get working on it.
I was just gonna say, just proceed.
Okay, good.
I don't
So I
think
like
we
to,
owe anybody anything.
Well-
Let's proceed.
I'm sure Jim wants to get his paintbrush out. So I propose that we accept this application as proposed, and we accept this application as proposed.
Great.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So out of curiosity, because it's a historic structure, do you get to jump the line of the building department hopefully for this?
Not the painting, see, so that's the question, you know, they're saying that we can't paint the facade or do any of this work, but you don't, maintenance doesn't require a permit, but since it's a historic district, they're saying we had to stop. So for what I tried to explain to them is that this is not the final coat of paint, because the paint has to be approved. I said, we need to continue, and they said no. So there's been a lot of confusion.
It's gotta be 50 degrees for 2 or 3 days. Can you start painting right away?
Listen, or trust me, we gotta work on the putty glazed windows.
Okay.
That's first on the thing.
Thank you.
And I do believe, you know, replacing the clapboard doesn't need a building permit, so they'll be able to, you know, weather tight it. But we were being respectful of the town's jurisdiction and authority, so thank you very much. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody.
Okay, so moving on to change to commercial. This is 65 South Elmwood, tax map number 300-49-4-44 in Montauk. And this is represented by Tara Burke. And actually, this is my application. Hold on. Oops. So this is fairly straightforward application. 65 Elmwood is essentially a vacant lot in Montauk, improved only with these wood posts that you see in the photograph and chain on the north and south perimeters, and then the stockade fence, which is what is in question for this application on the western property line, is proposed to be replaced. It's 92 linear feet and proposed again at 6 feet high. Currently, it's a stockade fence that has been painted. And the proposed is actually sort of an upgrade, if you will, though it's not quite clear to me whether it's going to be painted or if it's going to be left to weather naturally, but it's also a wood solid fence. It's being proposed as a replacement in kind, but it's not. I mean, it's not a stockade fence, so it's not exactly in kind, in my view. But the planning board already qualified this as a minor site plan, so it just is coming to us for approval of this along that western property line. So Tara, could you tell us what, if there's any other detail that?
Good evening, Tara Burke from Lighthouse Land Planning. This is pretty straightforward, I think. It's, yeah, as Esperanza said, it's a vacant lot in downtown Montauk. And there's an existing fence along the western property line. It's black and stockade. It's going to be proposed to be the natural wood fence that was just up on the screen. And that's really the full extent of it. It requires site plan and architecture review board because according to the code, it is a structure, and anytime a structure in a commercial district would require a building permit, which triggers your review and planning board review. And then I think the only thing that I just wanted to add was in that last photo of the site, the planning board had requested as a condition of their approval that we depict the chain link and the posts on the survey.
Right.
So the survey that's approved by the planning board will have that on it. So if you are inclined to approve the application and you want that on your survey, then you can make a condition of your approval and I can have the same survey for both boards.
Okay, I was going to ask you that because I noticed that it wasn't
Yeah.
on the survey that I had in my packet. So that's it. I mean, I don't really have any, now, just one question actually. So I see that it connects to the building, the adjacent building. Is that going to continue that way or is it just the fence?
Well, the adjacent building,
Is it the same owner?
It is the same owner.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't know if they're going to connect it or not. If they are, then we'd have to come to the ARB for that section on the neighboring property. So.
Okay, because that is their properties. Okay, I see.
Yeah, so can you maybe point out like where does the property for this empty lot stop and the one next to it start? Is it in the middle of that fencing?
It's right, the fence is right on the property line. And then the part that goes in and touches the Montauk Beach House, yeah, you can see it here. So it's just inside the property line. So it'll come across to here, oops,
Sorry.
it's okay, to right there, right? Just how it is now. And then if we need to replace any fencing on this property, then we'll come in for that one.
But do we know on that photograph?
Yeah.
It was just hard to tell
Hard
in
to
that
tell.
photograph
Yeah.
where,
The dimensions are the same.
so it's right about there.
Yeah.
And it's at the same owner, you said?
Well, it's, yes, essentially. It's two different LLCs, but yeah, it's essentially the same owner. And really, the fence is just there to shield the other property, so.
Okay.
Could you zoom into this portion of that? So, okay, so I thought that your fence went to that corner. And then the solid vertical board fence was the
Neighboring
Montauk Beach
property.
House. Is that accurate?
Well, on the survey, it shows as cutting across. So I would say that's not accurate.
Okay, that's what I just, yeah, in what you just said, that's what I understood. So I just wanted to double check. So essentially right now, we would be approving just the section that is stockade fence. There's another picture that we can look at that I think shows it from the east. And that's it. And that,
Well, the whole fence is going to be replaced.
yes, but that portion that was just facing us, that's vertical board, is going to stay that way?
The front portion is what,
Yes.
the front facade, that's
Yes.
going to stay. The portion that's going in between the two properties, the one that, it depicts the property line essentially, but slightly inside of it
Okay, so
changed.
the one in sunlight right now.
Yeah.
Because there's a fence
Right, the one in
in
sunlight.
shadow, and then there's a fence in the sunlight.
Mhm.
What's gonna happen with the fence in the sunlight?
The fence in the sunlight is staying.
Okay. I was
That's just-
I was
that's a
concerned. about
joiner,
that.
basically.
Yes,
It joins
exactly.
the property line to a building.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's the one that is in between the properties that's in a state of disrepair that they want to replace.
Right,
seems fine to me.
okay. And it's not being painted. It's going to be this natural, it's just going to weather.
Seems fine to me.
In the world of fencing, the fencing that they're proposing is
It's an
more
improvement.
expensive than
Yeah.
stockade fence.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so if there's nothing further. I'll make a motion to approve the application as submitted. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great,
Okay,
thank you.
good. Okay, moving on to Marin Montauk, tax map number 300-49-6-26, 21 Ocean View Terrace, Montauk. Again, this is another one that I went out to visit, and this is land planning? Yeah, okay. So this one took me a minute to locate the area that was, the application was referring to, but I found it's facing the south, this is facing the ocean in this hotel complex. And this is a guest lounge area. And what is proposed is that the existing garage door that is farthest to the left here, that is to be replaced with, quote, clear anodized aluminum storefront windows and doors. And so there would be similar in style to this, and there is a sheet in the packet, in the submission rather, that depicts the proposed, which is there on the far left. I was a little confused because I was seeing store windows, and these don't look like necessarily store windows to me. It looks like glass doors with side lights or something like that. So it's basically a door, yes? Okay. And with the fixed panels on either side. Okay.
Correct.
All right. And so it's going to mimic the look of the other doors.
Yeah, it's just a little different, obviously, because of the side lights.
Just the design. Yeah. Okay.
It's going the same fashion.
Yeah, so it's proposed at the same style. Okay. And it's just a means of egress. I guess they want to improve the egress for the guest lounge. I'm not sure, but
Well, the guest lounge just has that's something that's in the planning board, the guest lounge.
oh, well, this indicated that this was a guest lounge, so just anyway.
We're just here for the garage doors.
I understand. I'm not reviewing the interior or the use. I'm just saying that it appears to be something that improves the egress. So, any questions?
Where is this facing?
South,
This courtyard?
ocean.
So it's facing like, so
The
you can see
pool.
it from the beach?
Not really. I have a picture you can show Daniel that
So my question is really, can you see it from the public?
there, you can, there's the pool, and just behind that wall of the pool is this area that we were
It's
looking
pretty
at.
hard to see it from.
Yeah, it's sunken.
Yeah. This is like the same window and door manufacturer with the same dimensions of the horizontal and vertical. Just curious.
I'm a newbie, so please be gentle with me.
Daniel, maybe put back the elevations in that sheet, which has the specifications.
That's correct.
I mean, it seems fine to me. The only thing I just want to make sure that, yeah, the width of those anodized horizontal members and like the door frames, that they would sort of be in kind to what's there now.
Okay.
Not, like, because sometimes you get like, the risk could be, I don't want to get into the weeds of it, but the risk could be the ones on the right are not hurricane impact rated. And then this would have to be, and then they get beefier and they don't match. So as long as it matches.
Okay, I'll
Fine.
make sure that happens.
Okay.
It's just,
You want to take a look at the specifications on this page?
I think it kind of is what it is. You know, just have to sort of, it's one of those things you kind of have to leave to the faith of the architect a little bit to get that detailing right. I mean, I don't typically see that, I mean, I guess we could say that it matches and the match in kind in terms of the
Of the materials and the,
materials, but the dimensions of the
Well, the fenestration lines
fenestration lines, widths,
have to match up.
the profiles should match in dimension.
Mhm.
We don't want them to be thicker.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Same, but I also understand that sometimes they can, manufacturer says, well, it's not really available these days, so it's like half an inch less, and then they go back to us, and how do you handle that? So
Well,
I'm willing to approve.
I will say seems like a very well-maintained property, and I would
Yeah.
think that they're going to be
I'm fine with it.
careful with that. So,
I'd be fine approving it in kind. Because presented.
okay. Diane, anything else? No, okay. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve this application as submitted. Did you want me to make a note of, as long as it, okay.
I think it's really fine.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, we had agricultural overlay next on the agenda, and first up is Henry Beard for a modification. This is 62 Hampton Road, tax map number 300-189-4-2.1. And in Amagansett, this is Diane.
Yes, hello again.
Hello again.
Now, this project has been before us several times, and there were, basically, it began with three changes being made to this building. Two of the new structures have been built, and this is the existing structure. Could you go ahead with the pictures? And these are two, the tower is the original house, and the other two are the additions that have been built. And as you can see, they very, very much mimic the existing house. And I think the whole intention of this project was to keep the character of the house and to keep it simple. And why they're back now is the third part of this renovation and addition was a bigger project initially that we approved. And instead of, almost 600 just over 600 square foot, 1.5 story addition, they have decreased the ambition of this project to a 8 by 30 foot or 240 square foot bump out. That's the same height. So would you like to explain a little more? I mean, I think that the project has been simplified for,
It has, and it has been reduced in size, and that was because of cost. Originally, we had a 2-story structure back in, I think, fall of 22. We came in front of the board, and there was concern with the scale of that 2-story center portion. So we eliminated that second floor and added it as an addition, a 1-story addition off the east side. And then when we did the budget, it came in too expensive. It was, it was a lot more square footage, a lot more construction. So we eliminated that wing and we incorporated the bump out is about 8 by 30 bump out into that central section. Still keeping it 1 story, but we had to increase it a little bit because we had this bedroom suite that we had to incorporate into the center section. So the difference, the little bump out that we did is this bump out here. Before it just came straight across, and then we had this wing that came out. So we've eliminated that, and we end up with 1 dormer in the back, and then in the front elevation, that west elevation, we have 2 dormers. Before, originally, we had 3. Because of how we rearranged the internal space.
Is that how it's gonna look when it's finished?
Oh, yes, hopefully, yes.
So everything to the left is new and most everything to the right is old, except for those 2 little protrusions.
Right, this is the existing structure, and this is the tower, and
Yep.
these 2 one-story bedroom additions, we had gotten approval
Right.
earlier.
And they're the
And
ones
then
that
this
are
is
built.
the
Yeah.
wing, there's a music studio and living space.
Got it.
Even though they're just been built, they just match the house, you know, I don't know.
Well,
What kind of
that's
materials?
the intention, yes.
Yeah, but the intention was basically to make it, the new part indistinguishable from the existing house. So I think that basically we approved something that was much bigger in scope, and now it is, that the modification is basically to decrease the space and the fenestrations, et cetera, so if you have any.
And that's on the other side of this, right? It's
The
not
bump
this
out.
side, the bump out, right? Yes.
Behind that central portion.
Okay,
Right,
I understand. I
the
thought.
8 by 30 bump out.
I also noticed one comment I had on the last submission was about the entry, and this one seems to be improved a bit because there's more of a hierarchy. At least go to the previous page, Dan. There seems to be more of a hierarchy now between the left being the main entrance, right? And the right being sort of
A secondary.
Secondary.
secondary entrance, is that correct?
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's how it reads, so.
Mhm.
um,
It looks like a little village.
Yeah, I mean, I like how the fact that it's not like any other houses, you know, and it kind of rambles on. I think it,
Thank you very much, it has. correct.
curious what this looks like on the site with the survey. Yeah, so it's sort of, I mean, it's a long property and it kind of, the architecture kind of, for the most part, kind of follows that, right? It kind of is this long house now that kind of rambles in the direction of the site.
Mhm.
Yeah, we were able to save a really large oak tree in the back with this new addition. And that little bump out is actually a crawl space, which enabled us to preserve the tree. So like they've kept the property very rural.
Yeah, it's very natural.
Do we have the lighting cut sheets? You putting sconces on it, or
It was all
Yes,
approved, right?
that's part of the
Okay.
submission.
has that been approved?
It was approved.
Everything already. This is just a modification for this particular addition.
So we're just basically, okay, so it's the massing and the fenestration we're approving. Okay.
Okay.
Seems fine to me.
Okay, so, wonderful. So I make a motion to accept this application, these modifications to this application as presented.
Second.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will. Did you say aye?
Not yet. Aye.
There was just, sorry, before you go, there was just one question I think, Daniel, you had about the consistency of lot coverage as it's reflected in the,
Oh, that's the next one. This one was, we just want clarification, the GFA for this one.
Yes,
the GFA.
yes, the
Okay.
GFA is about 14,000 square feet for this property and will be finished about 6,000 and change.
Thank you.
So we'll need the final GFA for the house for the resolution.
I do have it on this.
Okay.
I didn't update your plan.
Can you email that to me tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
yeah, and just, and Daniel, was this another one that I actually do have a note, the elevations don't reflect the lighting?
Yeah, they weren't, the fixtures weren't on the elevation.
We did add those.
You add those to that?
elevation, so I'll also
Thank
send
you.
out.
Okay, so we'll just be sure to have those submitted and reflected in the resolution.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And
that was
you
it.
keep walking away, but we have typically a resolution has the height of the addition, height above grade.
Yes, we do have that information.
Okay.
You know, it's not on this set.
I have
You have it on the permit set, but I can,
Yeah, so,
on this set that I sent to you tomorrow.
yeah, okay.
I'm just gonna see
Yeah,
if
just
you're-
everything that, yeah, thank you.
And for reference, it's 19 feet and 1 inch. They had on the app. I think you guys wrote in the application.
Okay, good, good.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you. You can now walk away. Thank you. Happy holidays. All right, next up is James Frank. This is also for modification. This is tax map number 300-1966-1-2.2, 11 Town Line Road in Wainscott. It's represented by Trevor Darrell. And this one is mine. And this has been a long and winding road. So, deep breath. Thank you for doing all of your sleuthing to put this all together, because I know how much work that is. You've now submitted a complete set of elevations indicating the approved plans from the resolution, gosh, was it dating 2021? I want to say, originally, to the, what is existing actually, and those are the modifications that we're looking at tonight. And there's a whole list of exterior changes that we need to review. And I have photos of the site that we can go through as well. And I'd like to just look at also the site plan and landscaping. And in particular, we need to go over the scenic easement, and that's it. I think what might be best is if we just go through all of the elevations.
Sure.
What would be easy, see the pictures first, and then go through the elevations?
And just so I know, is the proposed work that we're considering approval as built that
Yes.
we're gonna see? Okay,
100%.
okay.
Yes, we tried to come with everything, withdrew every prior modification and piecemeal components, and we submitted what's actually being sought for approval.
So this is stuff that was already built that we're now approving? Is that basically?
Well, that remains to be seen.
It sounds like some things have been modified
During the construction?
during the construction process,
These
some
conform to the
stayed,
plans we
some
approved.
conform, some don't. So when we walk through, it would be most helpful for me is on the photographs to be able to point out, say, this is approved, or this is what we're proposing.
Do you want to do that on the photographs or on the elevations? Because the elevations have the approved and the existing.
Start with the elevation.
So then let's look at the elevations first. Okay. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, I think that'll be easiest just for you to see, because you're familiar with this.
Sorry.
Okay.
Is that visible? Is that,
Yeah, as good as it's going to get, I think, to see both of them.
yeah.
I mean, I think the primary modification is to the siding, which due to the pandemic and costs, was changed from natural wood to latex. So it's white. And we had approved natural wood.
Is it vertical or horizontal?
There are a little bit of both.
And we actually brought samples
Oh,
of the
thank you.
materials as well.
And
What was
where
approved and what wasn't installed.
where is the site? Is it visible? Is it?
Yes, it is.
Is it across from the barbecue place?
It is just down the road from there. It is
On the other side.
definitely visible as you drive east. And, you know, you have the big farm field and Town Line Barbecue, and it's just past Town Line Barbecue if you go past through the vista there.
All right, keep going.
So, and so then maybe we could just, so the siding was changed, and then there were some fenestration changes as well as the balconies, railings were changed from cable railings to glass. I think that's it for this page, right?
So
And I'm looking at cable railing, and this was as submitted and approved, not.
On the
as
top.
built.
Top is
approved.
approved.
As built.
As built.
Oh, okay.
So I did it on each elevation
Okay,
to
yeah,
try to
yeah,
keep
yeah,
it
Very
so
helpful.
you
Yeah.
can see
Excellent.
Thank you.
instead of the hunt.
Yes, which I've had to do.
Okay.
Yeah, so the glass is on the second story, really, not on the lower stories. Go on to the next one?
Yeah. I was also gonna point out too, they also added the little grill station in this corner. I think that was also
Yes.
part of this, and the lighting fixtures,
Thank you.
the security cameras, I think.
Right, we called those out on the lighting plan.
Okay, this is the facing north elevation. Main change here is the garage doors, which at the top you see are a little more of a traditional garage door style. And then the lower elevation depicts what is there, which is,
There's one giant garage.
there are three.
Oh, there's two.
Mhm. The entryway was proposed as glass, and then now it's solid, just to the right of the garage. And then there's some change in the fenestration. Oh, no, sorry, yeah,
Missing-
in
missing
yes, the
window.
little window that is not there any longer, and then there's a change to the chimney there.
And there's a porch where there used to be a interior space.
No, that's just no windows there.
Oh, no windows there.
So it's a blank wall.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay, this is the front elevation. So this faces west. Lots of fenestration changes here. The main entry doorway went from a half glass with side lights to a solid door with side lights. The circular window in the gable is divided in quarters rather than in the multiple sections. And then again, the same chimney change. So I think is that, yeah.
And some windows got taken out. Yeah.
And windows removed, yeah. Mhm.
Better.
And reordered in the center part there.
Sure.
Mhm. Okay, next. And then this is the rear elevation. So on the top, you'll see all the glass railings from the cable railings, some changes in the fenestration in the central portion, and then window door changes on the right side and on the left, and then the lower doors that lead to the rear yard are completely changed. They look taller. And and there's a pedestrian door to the garage where there was a window originally, and the grill. And just the detail of the gable. Change of the garage, decorate,
So which elevations are visible from where? Like from town line, which is like backyard, like,
no, the elevation, the front elevation is what's visible from town line,
okay, and this elevation is visible from where?
from the.
Nowhere.
Nowhere, really.
The back.
The backyard.
It
Like,
has
is there
a 100-foot
ag
scenic
field?
easement. It's a 100-foot scenic easement. There is what was formerly Kilmore Farm next door, now Farrell Farm.
Which I think is due to be coming before you guys at some point. as well,
Yes.
but
Yes,
They got hit with a stop work order themselves.
yes, they did. They went ahead and constructed.
Between this house and 27 or the other
So
side?
there's one.
No, that's on the south. So Farrell Farm is on the south side. And then to the north of this is the house that we have reviewed.
We have reviewed it, it's still pending.
That is, yeah, and it's again for sale. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Oh, here we go.
Oh, thank you, Daniel.
So that's the property. And where's 27?
North of here. So there's a farm field at the
And
corner.
there's right.
Town line would be just opposite that farm field, Town Line Barbecue.
So it's two houses in really, if you take.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, you can see it.
Can you see the side of this house from 27?
No,
Really?
A giant,
yeah, there's a huge sort
Yeah,
of
that
evergreen.
hedge is, it's
Yeah.
huge.
And the owner just decided to make these changes because he or she felt like it, or what was the reason?
so I have a whole, I can get into that.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
Did we cover all of the facades then?
You did.
Let's just go back, so I want to see the visibility. So that one is the, that's facing the backyard,
So it's east.
So that faces
East.
east,
which is
the scenic easement.
okay, this is facing a scenic easement.
Mhm.
So is it visible?
No,
No,
when you see the pictures, you'll see it's
Okay.
fairly enclosed.
Okay,
Mhm.
keep going. So let's go back. This is the, as seen from the street.
I should say, it will be fairly visible if you are within Farrell Farm.
It's visible from a neighbor.
Yes,
Okay, go back. So that's the street we're looking at. And then I'd be curious to know this one. What direction is this facing?
north.
North.
27.
So this is faces towards 27.
Mhm.
There's a row of pine trees, right? The neighbors. or
There's a
something.
neighbor and then the farm field, and yeah, there's a whole,
But there's no guarantee, trees are temporary. so-
correct. Yeah.
Okay, should we see the photos?
are they windows in the new garage door and the existing garage?
Those are windows, yeah, there's just slivers of windows.
So go back.
Yeah, so this is like the front facade.
Does that walkway go out to the road or what does it go to?
To the driveway.
Driveway, okay. Okay.
So the house is fairly set back. The original house where the large, it's maple tree, the former house was just in front of that. It was a very small house. This house was then situated farther back on the property. So it has a substantial amount of front yard. And then this is the backyard with the pool and the pool house and fireplace. And this is the garage doors and area. That windowless area.
The scratch doors look like industrial doors. They are.
They don't seem to go with the rest of the house.
Yeah, are those doors unusually high? I mean, like for fire trucks? What is the height of those doors?
I just think it's a bad picture. It's when you're on site,
It's a normal garage
Yeah,
door?
they look large. I think it's just the garage itself. I don't think the picture distorts it that much. They're fairly
They must be
imposing.
10 feet tall? I mean, how tall are those doors? 9 feet?
contractors here, so I can, any specific questions I can get answers to immediately.
Perhaps because the space between the roof line, maybe that's.
Typical doors are like 8.
Okay, keep going, Danny, thank you. This is the pool house, west elevation. No. No, yes, no, north. And that's the rear facade. And that's the scenic easement, so that's why I say that you can see the horse farm on the right there. That's the barn, one of the barns. Is that it? Okay. Does that give you an idea? Okay. All right, take it away.
So, good evening again, Trevor Darrell, Plumbing and Darrell PLC, on behalf of the applicant, Karen and Jim Franks. This application, as Bronza mentioned, has been pending before this board for quite some time. And I think it was this actual sitting board sat on the original approval application as well, back in.
Frank wasn't.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so Frank, you're just seeing this for the first time, but everyone else was part of the original approval process. And there's been a lot of confusion ongoing on this property, and I'm trying to break it down and simplify it as best I can, which is what my goal has been, so that the board can actually sort of see what is existing and what the modifications actually are on the property. Some I think would be, minor. Some I think are less minor, but in the totality, we have to look at it through, as one modification application. The goal here, the house obviously is constructed, and the process right now sits at, we're waiting for ARB approval for the building department to be able to sign off on a certificate of occupancy. That's where we are. The building codes, the fire codes, and all of that have been met. And I think even as to the planning department memo to the board, we've sort of met all of the otherwise would be conditions on this property. So really we're here because of the changes in the aesthetics to the property, which is based on, the ag overlay district where this property sits. So addressing the historical nature, and my client and the applicant was not here at the original application. His architect was the agent on his behalf, as well as at the first modification presentation. Only the architect was present as well. He is present here today, this morning, as well as the contractor. And I say that because part of this process, to your point, which you had asked previously, Chip, was that this wasn't just a change along the way sort of situation. Back in 2019, when my client was looking to purchase this property, his real estate agent was Rick Slater, who's also here. And Rick had shown him this house that Rick had built, which was, on this cover of this magazine. And this is what the concept and thought, the farmhouse that he wanted to build always. And my client hired the same team of people who built this house, the same architect.
Which is on Co-Follow Road by the old cat.
Correct. Yep. The same architect, the same builder, same subcontractor, same players. And so that was the original concept and plan. And through, applicant and through his agents, the plans were put together and presented to the board, and the conversations were had, and we watched the hearings that were presented to the board, and there were conversations about the type of materials that were going to be used on the siding, and nobody had anticipated or envisioned the pandemic coming, so as to the material choices. And I did submit to the board, and I couldn't remember if I had submitted as part of the original package of stuff, but I also had emailed yesterday the bar graph of the chart showing the increase in just softwood pricing at the time when the siding was due to be put on the side of this house. It was triple what it had been when the original plans had been put forward. And as the contractor can verify, we couldn't even guarantee they could get it, let alone, have enough or the price to put it on. So the material that was chosen is what we have before you, which is the ash material, which is to be painted, which was always the concept, was to be painted white siding on this property. As it came to what we've come to find out is that during the process that while the architect and everybody came to the ARB initially, this, as you mentioned, this is not Cove Farm, this is the Ag Overlay District, and you can't do simple change orders like you would do on a traditional job site. And unfortunately, that wasn't relayed, I think, to the applicant in a way that they didn't realize that you can't just make changes without coming back to this board. So these changes, while like I said, the window is, instead of being 8 pane, it's 4 pane. Nobody thought to think that, well, that's actually a change to what was the approved design. The paint was always, like I said, the plan was to be a white house.
Can I just say, but,
Sure.
so if the resolution was it to be a white house or was it to be naturally? So where's the thought that this was always going to be a white house that was approved to be natural siding?
I think that was the owner's intent, but it wasn't reflected on the submitted plans.
Correct.
Okay, keep going.
So, and there was
And there was never discussion of that being white,
correct. When you go back to the hearings, there wasn't a conversation about that.
right? Okay,
There was a carve-out note on the plans that was not discussed that said, and this is the architects, saying that it was subject to the owner's approval. But that carve-out note wasn't translated and wasn't brought to the board as to this decision. And it's obviously a big one because the house that was, painted white, and that was always the homeowner's intent, was to have the white. And like I had mentioned, the house that was constructed is the same house that was approved as to the size, the shape, the height, the footprint, and the gross floor area. And at one point, the architect had submitted a modification to relocate the pool house on the rear of the property from the south side to the north side. And there was a little bit of a confusion in that at that same time the modification was submitted, soon thereafter, an approval was mailed to the applicant's agent, which was interpreted to be the approval for the modification that had been filed. But after further review and conversation, it was determined that that modification that approval that was received was amending the original approval of this board, amending the gross floor area from 3,000 square feet, give or take, to about 6,000 square feet for GFA. But that was then interpreted to be the modification approval for the relocating of the pool house. And there was actually a building permit issued by the building department, and it was reviewed with the contractor and building department, and those permits were issued. So the pool house location and construction and material was based on approved plans that everybody thought was approved by this board. And then it was only after further review by Esperanza that actually the approval that was received was not the modification approval, but was an amendment to the original approval.
correct.
So the proposed pool house location is still part of this modification application to correct that confusion that was, I think, both on our side as well as the building department side. So it wasn't done sort of without thought. The applicant is here today on bended knee. He's not here to fight with the board, and he fully acknowledges that there were changes made here that were done without the approvals. This isn't a situation, and I hate to, there are applicants who've been before this board recently who are doing things, I think, just to, to make you to make decisions that are, to pick a fight, and that's not what's happening here. This was done, it was intentional, but it wasn't intentionally to thumb its nose at this board. That makes sense. So he is here and he understands that the totality of the circumstances are such that he understands that this board may require certain other changes or conditions that will be part of this process.
Trevor,
Yes.
you came before us because this is an agricultural overlay.
Correct.
How could not everyone involved in this project understand that?
So I can't speak to how they didn't understand it, but what I can tell you is that neither the architect nor the builder had ever appeared before this board prior to this job. So they were all new, and even the agent at the time of the sale has never appeared before this board on any of the properties that he's ever either represented or done on his own. So unfortunately, it didn't get to me until.
But then why did they think they were in front of us at all? Because they wouldn't have come in front of us.
No, they came here originally, but the architect didn't understand that.
He didn't understand
you
why
can't
it was
just
here.
and I'm not trying to, pass aspersions on the architect. He's a very nice guy and he's a knowledgeable architect. Just because it was approved and the house didn't change, the features changed,
Right, okay.
right? So
So we had some people that just weren't very aware of.
right, the structure, like I said,
Really read
it
the-
remains the same. The footprint, the scope, the size, the doors are the same amount of doors. There's a few less windows, and.
Yeah, well, generally on the windows.
That goes down the road.
Less is good for us. We like.
Right, so to that point, I was gonna mention it later, but because of the concern on the rear yard, the amount of light that may be, exiting through those doors, we went from a larger width to now it's a little bit taller, but there's less width. So mathematically, Fred advises it's about the same amount of, square footage of glass on the building.
So stepping back a little bit in
Sure.
terms of I don't want to get bogged down in timeline and all, but my understanding, so it sounds like, because again, this is the first time I'm seeing this. There was something approved by the ARB and either during construction or before ground was broken, the property was sold.
No.
No.
No, it's the
Same.
same
So
owner.
is the same applicant?
Yes,
So the original applicant went before the ARB, got an approval. I don't know where the real estate agent comes into play.
He was the builder of the house this was copied from. Correct, Rick? Yeah.
it's,
So he was the builder as well as the real estate agent.
So
and to the point
No
is
one
that
had any
this is the
idea.
first time, that the actual owner got involved was when he went to go get the final C of O, so he could do his refinance, is when all this sort of came to light.
and so no one who, like, the applicant, no one was aware that you can't change anything? I guess it's kind of a rhetorical question, but let's proceed.
It's a little hard to
So-
comprehend.
Anyways, it's kind of, it is what it is, but, sheesh.
Well, I mean, less windows is great. I think the garage doors are atrocious. They look like they belong in a bad firehouse. How could you take off those nice garage doors and put on these doors?
They don't even seem to match the
Yeah.
vicinity to the
No, it
house.
looks totally industrial warehouse stuff.
So here's my view of some things that I think are, that I'm fine, like, I think luckily the view from the street is I'm actually fine. I believe it's the garage that now is, no, it's not the garage, it's whatever that volume is that's sticking out towards the street, has 2 windows instead of what was originally 4, which I actually think that little bump out's the best part of the house. But what is the material above the entry? What's the roof above the entry? Because it looks white, but I'm sure it's the photograph.
Is that the gray standing seam metal? Mhm.
So what's the roofing material over that bump out? Can we zoom in on that, Dan?
Yeah, so that's metal,
Uh,
Yeah, the rest of it is cedar shingle.
which was, I think that was another change as well. It was originally the standing seam metal roof was meant to be black, and then it was changed to this dark gray. So
But it was approved as standing seam?
it was, yeah, there were sections. I mean, I can't say right now off the top of my head what sections, if that was respected, but
Was that with, was the window on the second floor?
Round one?
No, to the right of the round one. It's actually, I wish that window weren't there, but it was approved.
It was
Which,
talked
those
about.
little ones?
It was talked about a lot.
oh, the round one?
Yeah, we talked.
The round is on the resolution.
We talked about it a lot.
That's how
No, not
important
the
it
round
was.
one, the little tiny one on the second floor,
The two little.
which looks
tiny
fine in elevation, but when you see it in 3D, it doesn't work. But it is what it is, because it was approved. That one.
Those
Oh,
two.
those little-
No, not the two ones, the one. to
No, the
right-
two
one-
above.
That little,
Yeah,
that
there's
little
one on
one,
either side.
The contemporary.
that little one, but it was approved.
Yeah.
So, I don't know where I just realized that this is gray standing seam roof that doesn't match the other. And it wasn't approved as gray, but let's go to the other photos. Okay. I mean, here's what it is. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Now, Esperanza, what did you think about first of all, on the right volume with no windows?
I mean, programmatically, I guess that was a change that was made.
Does it look bare? Because it's hard to tell from the photographs.
I mean, it's planted, but there may be another photograph. I'm not sure if there's a better photograph that shows that.
I mean, I'm gonna agree that the garage doors aren't working
They're not.
architecturally. I think it's
Just,
hard.
I misspoke earlier with the garage doors, they're 10 wide by 8 tall.
Okay, thank you.
10 wide by 8 tall. And what's a normal garage door?
I didn't change the width or height of the door. This
You
was
just changed the
what-
door?
Just the style of the door was changed.
It's kind of a standard dimension.
Standard size.
Narrow.
I think it's the color that
It's the
makes them.
proportion of
And the style.
photograph.
To me, they're like mid-century versus.
I mean, in light of all the changes, I actually don't think it's probably that hard to change the garage door.
No, simple.
So can we go to the back? The problematic thing I see is that, and this is more intrusive, is that middle sliding unit.
I agree.
The other ones, I realize the ones that are under the overhang, the soffit are, those are in shadow, not as in view, but I mean, that's.
What was supposed to be there?
They were different. They
Let's go
were
back to the
more-
drawing.
Accordion almost.
not French door, but they were a little more.
It was more, the scale of those was more in keeping with,
Exactly.
so what's been done is that
Two windows.
Oh, I see. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
that middle unit, the height of it has been brought to a height that doesn't match the other
Yeah.
first floor sliding doors.
Mhm.
And it seems like that the trim above it has also been brought up.
Correct.
So what was architecturally sort of a datum running around the rear elevation with that trim board has now been interrupted with that bump up with this huge triple slider.
Mhm.
Or I don't know if it's fixed or looks like a fixed unit. It's gotta be a sliding door, but proportionally, it's not the same as
No.
the other ones.
Right.
You look at the photo, Red?
What do we do?
Photograph is worse.
Yeah, one other detail I should point out is the covered porch areas, the columns were squared off. So they're much more solid than they were originally proposed. That was one other detail.
Oh, they were more slender in the face. There would be a fascia wrapping around it. Yeah.
But I
don't think that
completely
would have
agree
been-
with you.
I don't think that would, I think you're right with the columns, that would have been approved.
This is just massive.
I mean, I do know structure, I'm sure structurally, those columns are not that big, to support a roof overhang like that. It's just done to fill it out.
Mhm.
Let's go to the next elevation just to check that. Oh, is that one? Sure, right?
So this is the back of the garage.
Yeah.
So you see this, the barn door that's there. This is what those garage doors confuse me because I find that there's a farmhouse style to this that then is not,
It's so inconsistent.
repeated on the other side. of the elevation.
Really inconsistent.
What's your feelings, Beyonce?
Well, I think, for me, the biggest shock was to see a white house. And then the change of the glazing that you just pointed out, Frank, on that lower level with those larger glass doors, that was another shock. The pool house relocation, shock.
Can we approve that? Or
We did not.
we did not approve.
No, that was where there was a hiccup. This was meant to be on the south side, on the original plans, proposed plans, approved plans. And it was it was like a pool house with a pergola. It was just a whole different thing.
But
But the size of the pool house stayed.
the size of the pool house was the same, and this was what was approved. This is what was part of that modification.
Well, the modification
That
was
then,
for as you said, it was to correct the error of the
well, that's what we received.
square footage.
But what the modification.
Had it been a modification for the pool house, it would have indicated this is an approval of modification for the relocation of the pool house, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
No, that I get,
Okay,
but then it was, when it was brought to the building department, and I think Jeremy
Yeah, they made a
was involved as well, all read it the same way that we read it, was to say, okay, this part was approved. So a permit was issued, so it was built in that location. But.
yeah,
so
nobody
it's
looked
still-
at the plans.
And the concept was, while they were building the house and being there during the summer months, realized the flow of the sun during the day, it made much better sense to have it on that side, on the north side, so you got the sun most of the day as opposed to the opposite side.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the relocation is okay to that north side, except that I found it just is another volume that you see from the front. It bumps out.
So it's visible from the street?
Well, nothing's visible from the street because it's evergreened.
But I mean, like in
It's-
the absence of,
Yes,
like that,
yes,
the
it
pool
would be.
house would have been in the lot, it would have been in back of the house in terms of its sight line, but it's now.
It's now
into
just
the
bumps
side.
out a bit, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look hard to see it. I mean, because I went to the site this morning as well. It does protrude just a tad past the house.
This is all evergreened off from the street.
Yeah, originally it had just overgrown sort of brush and just what you see all the time here. It's part of the rural landscape that was all pulled out. Some mature trees are left, thankfully, which I think is part of the subdivision of approval, which we'll discuss. So there's like an oak tree and other trees that are there, but it's just a wall of whatever they are, Leland cypresses, or, the soldiers, the green soldiers.
I also think it's a fair observation if you're a neighbor in Wainscott who goes through the same process for approval, and then this happens, I think we have to factor in community standards and what we're here for, right? Meaning we rightly so subject homeowners to a level of scrutiny in architectural detail. And just have to keep that in mind in terms of our recommendations and funding here.
Well, I mean, this is agricultural overlay district, so the owner is steward of this property, and that stewardship requires a respect for all of these, requirements that we have. Agree. This is difficult.
The three problematic things I see, one is the garage doors. The other one, as discussed, was that rear sliding unit. And the other one is the 4 columns also on the rear side, that the mass of those is greater than what was approved. It's certainly a lot of it is a huge, large deviation from what was approved. I mean, my personal feeling is that I think I'm fine with the white.
I mean, what are you gonna do? Sandblast it off?
Right. Even if that, then you're left with bare Versatex. So,
And it would be what, this color?
so,
I think it's that order.
I mean, it's not the only White House in Wainscott, you know.
I think anyone can live with that. I think you're right. I think the doors are number one issue. This door in the center is number two issue. And the mass of those columns is the third issue.
I mean, there are other issues, but those are the
But
ones.
those are the ones that.
Those are the ones that I feel are like
Glaring.
egregious. The ones that sort of don't conform to the spirit of
Wainscott.
Wainscott, kind of what was approved here. So,
The idea of columns.
I think the thing is, if we were to approve this, I think we would it seems you're either excuse me, if we're gonna not approve it, we're gonna have to tell the applicant either you conform to exactly what was given there, but given how the upper windows have changed, I'm not sure that's still gonna work. But I guess if they could conform to what was approved for that middle window and the columns, and that would include also then the trim and above it, then I suppose that would conform. But what I'm getting at is it's like I almost would need to see a new elevation of that to approve it.
Not the original.
I mean, if the applicant be willing to, can we see the original again? The drawing?
It's drawings to get a sense, for me, anyway.
One of these.
So I will let the applicant himself speak to those answers as to.
Hi, thank you. I'm Jimmy Frank. Sorry for being in this position. I can answer that question, but I've also jotted down a little statement, and I don't know if we need to go through it, but it just gives a little background on how we got to this situation. Frank, to answer on the back, we were building during the pandemic and we were having problems getting materials, including those were going to be, those were going to be accordion doors, not individual opening doors, accordion doors. And we were having a problem getting those, sourcing those. When we came to the conclusion that the sliding doors were the simplest item to get, we went to the middle of the house and we elected to alleviate the windows on either side, remove some of the glass, and to create a full height, which from inside provides gorgeous vistas to the farmhouse beyond my property. And that's sort of how we ended up with that design.
Yeah, I can see how you ended up that way, but sorry, proceed.
Okay, so I don't know, Esperanza, if you want me to take the time and read through a statement. Sometimes I feel like I'm better off letting Trevor get involved, but I do want to say that I think that this is a unique situation for many reasons, including how we presented to you in the beginning of this. My architect wasn't familiar with the ARB. When we made the other modification and recently, and when we were moving the pool house from one side to the other, and it came back that we had a stop work order and then it got lifted. But at that point, I realized that there was more going on than I understood about the approval process. And I brought Trevor in to help us get through this. My architect is a fine man, but his communication skills were inappropriate here. And when we looked at some of the stuff in the back of the house, his attitude was, it shouldn't be a problem. You know, if you change the doors and the light is the same amount of glass, if you remove 2 windows, meaning he didn't think we had to come back before you for those modifications. I've lived in Wainscott for 25 years. I raised my kids here. I'm not as a permanent resident. I was on Sachem's Path on Town Line Road. And my kids went to Beach Lane Beach every weekend and in the summer and skated at Buckskill tennis courts in the winter. We're intimately familiar with the town and we love the town. And we were trying to build something that was a contemporary style farmhouse. And it was going to hopefully take me into the next 30 years of my family and accommodate the holidays and my kids and my grandkids. You look at the railings, for example, and our architect did not make it clear about every little modification, but we had railings on the balconies upstairs. And I got concerned when my children down the road have kids and those kids go out on that balcony, climbing up on the railings made me nervous. So that was an example of how a change occurred. The doors, by the way, we went from glass doors to solid doors for security purposes. What we didn't realize, which we ultimately realized, that we're close to 27 and we're really across the street from Town Line Barbecue, a catty corner. Mm-hmm. But those cars park up and down across the street on my side of the block and turn around in front of my house. So even the arborvitae putting that up, which shields the house pretty much from the street, is really there as a security measure more than anything else. When it comes to the back of the house, there's nobody behind me, and I'm not suggesting that I'm indifferent to people behind me, but there is nobody behind me. The horse farm is almost 16 or 17 acres. And there's a barn that you see in the back of the first 2 acres, similar to mine, are, from what I was told, never going to be built and always going to be open. And behind that, he's got the rest of his property. And at the end of the property is one house, which I think Farrell's daughter's living in. It's a house that can be lived in. But I don't think you can build on that property. I don't think they can build additional houses on that property. And for me, having the vistas, Esperanza, you were there, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it's pretty spectacular. I bought this piece of property staring at the horse farm and the openness of the sky and the openness of the land. When I lived up on Town Line Road North, we were pretty much in the woods. And you really didn't have the opportunity to have these kind of vistas. And I wanted to take advantage of that. When you even talk about the columns in the back, this is a project that's bigger than I imagined. It's on 2 acres. And the house isn't a humongous house. The house is 6,000 or 7,000 square feet. You could have built it out further. I could have moved it up front. I could have put tennis courts in, but that wasn't my interest. My interest was to have it an open feeling. When we looked at the back patio and even the columns, the picture doesn't do it justice because it is an expansive piece of property. The columns don't really, and the deck is big behind the house. So those are a couple of how we got here.
How'd you get there on the garage doors?
I'm sorry?
How did you get there on the change in the garage doors?
Garage doors. So the garage doors were a sourcing problem, and we ended up with what we thought were sort of contemporary garage doors with a wood veneer. So it had sort of a natural, but yet contemporary. I think it's a matter of taste and you don't really see the garage doors. They're not visible unless you pull up because they're facing north. And if you look at the house, so it's not like the garage doors face the street.
Right, but if anything happens to the vegetation on between you and 27, that'd be very.
Well, I have I have a tree line between my property and that property. He's got a big tree line. He's ultimately gonna put up a house there, I'm pretty sure. And unless he takes down all the trees around him and exposes that, you'll never see the garage doors. I do understand, and it was a change, and I do understand that it may not be the best looking change. And I'm happy to, as Trevor said, and I have no choice, I'm between a rock and a hard place. We weren't making these changes willy-nilly with disrespect to the board. We were making the changes to the house that I was told won't be a problem. I'm sorry for that. Say I'm in between a rock and a hard place.
We'll say, to be fair, it is the professional's duty to adhere to these things.
Yes, to understand.
So I do understand that ultimately, legally, it's not the person who stamps the drawing, the people in the field are the people that are responsible for, the professionals, I'll call them, are the ones who are responsible for adhering to it. So
when I learned from Trevor that your board meetings are public and on YouTube, I started watching them, certainly mine. And in fairness, at the end of either the first or the second one, and it might have been Chip, was saying that you can't just make changes willy-nilly. And he said to my architect, you have to go tell your owners that to stop pushing you around and making changes without getting approval. But he never came back to us and raised the red flag even. He said it won't be don't worry, it won't be a problem. And I'll give you a great example of, and the reason why Rick is here, my builder is here, because the story is so unbelievable to me that the truth here is almost unbelievable. So my architect said at the end of the last meeting with you, he said, oh, I'll make the changes and highlight it. And Kathy said, no, I want you to bubble it. And he said, no, I'll highlight it. And she said, please bubble it. And he said, no, it'll be too confusing for you. I don't know if you remember or not. I've watched this video 50 times. And to give an example of the architect's naivety to the importance of this board, he said to you upon leaving, well, if I make these changes and submit it to you on Wednesday, this was a Thursday meeting, can I get on the next board and get it approved? Mm-hmm. So in his mind, and I'm not here to blame anybody but myself. I'm responsible. But he never came back and he never said, you can't imagine what the board said to me. Well, in his mind, it was always going to be these modifications. And I guess if you were building and you weren't in an ARB, moment, you can make the changes. The
building department would have issues with it because you're not conforming to the plans you filed. So they would pick it up when they do the C of O. It's just that you're in double jeopardy because this is in front of the ARB too.
Yeah.
So you can't submit one thing and build another thing. But so how do we?
Right. I mean, I think the problem is the extent of modifications, right? Because there are moments where, one window was, and we will say, it substantially conforms to your approval. We do that because the changes are minor in the scheme and the scope of the project. But in this case, I think we're finding there, obviously that.
And I understand completely.
There are some that are.
So what would be acceptable to you in terms of result?
Yeah, what would you propose?
So I think about the garage doors. My neighbor next door, not my neighbor, Jeff Collet built his first house on the property.
We're very familiar with it.
And what he has is black garage doors, no windows, no nothing, just black, and it's sort of modern. The idea I didn't want the house to be a replica of a real farmhouse. Everybody puts in those garage doors that have the cross hatches and the idea of this was to have a little bit of a modern element to it. The house being white and black was supposed to be a contemporary style farmhouse.
But you had traditional garage doors in the plans that we approved. So
Yeah.
You had traditional garage.
Oh, no, we had,
There were windows
Yeah, they
across
were,
the top.
and they were the
Yeah.
crosshatch.
Yeah.
they did it, and
They did.
They did.
So you,
Well, I think the owner's explaining that it's like neither completely contemporary nor, like, it's sort of a, it's elements of contemporary mixed in with this house.
No, we understand. I think what
I
we're
think
saying
it's the
is,
open window.
So with those garage doors, from a supply point of view, we're having a problem getting them. We made a decision, let's go with this look. I'm not married to that look. I'm not married to my garage doors. I don't even really see them. But my neighbor, Jeff Collet, built a house that has a similar garage door, but no windows, no nothing. It's just black. And maybe one of the, and this is a wood veneer. So I thought it had some charm having a natural element to it, right, rather than it being a white vinyl or whatever kind of garage doors you get these days. But
well, no, it's more what you proposed. I mean, that's what we based the judgment on. You proposed a set of sort of colonial revival garage doors, which we approved, and you put in industrial garage doors. So that's the issue. I mean, I don't care what Jeff Collet did. That's a whole nother project. But my concern is that you just didn't adhere to what we approved. And the garage doors are the most obvious and I think the most easily thing for you to fix. Ripping out this sliding glass door is not going to be inexpensive, and reducing the scale of the columns is not going to be inexpensive. But I mean, I think there has to be some give and take here between you and us. We're not going to approve this the way it is.
I have no choice to listen to what you have to say and agree to it.
Okay.
I'm not in a position at this point with the problems that have become insurmountable to me.
Are you in the house? Is there a CO?
No, there's no CO.
So you're not even in the house. Okay.
So I built a house.
Then you can't get into it.
I can't have Thanksgiving there. I can't have my parents there.
Okay, so the goal would be to get you into your house in a way that's appropriate for us and appropriate for you. I think
Yes.
that's the goal.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what does the board think about what?
Can I just add something with the columns?
Yes.
So the columns, the idea of the columns.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Fred Saluda.
Fred Saluda, builder. The columns came from another project that I showed Jimmy while I was in the bid stage. And what we did was we put screens through the columns. So retractable screens come down from the top on the three sides of the right, where's the back? Yeah, the right side porch. And then the left side where the two doors are is just a replica of that column, which is carrying the screens. So they're
So there's screens that pull down?
yeah, if you go back to the picture, they're motorized.
Centaur screen or something?
You could almost see the track. No, on the other side. Please. Yeah, you can just see, there's just a track. It's a very thin, it's flush with the siding. Screen roll up is in the top. Comes down that one on three sides. That's the reason why, once again, the back facade wasn't it was almost a point of, it's okay. It's the back of the house.
I hate to say this, but I think Esperanza, you need to look at that, what it looks like down. I mean, presumably these are like invisible screens, but
Oh, you mean we need to have?
They're a regular vinyl gray or charcoal color screen. Just has a white hem bar at the bottom that's about 2 inches.
When you say screen, is it like a solid, it's a mesh?
like a
Yeah, it's a
black.
mesh.
So it
black
becomes
mesh.
like a screened-in porch.
Like a screened-in porch?
Yeah.
Correct.
I see, okay.
But it's on a roller.
Yes.
Yeah,
would say
it's
it's
a
not-
motorized roller.
It's not in this. I think you'll notice that,
Going
my
back,
concern, frankly, my concern with that is that when they're down, it's gonna look black. I don't know, to
does
get
it roll on the
technical,
outside?
I don't know what the opacity of those screens are. I know this is sounding nitpicky, but if it's gonna come down and it's gonna look like a black privacy screen, then, hey,
Well, they gotta be able to see out of it, otherwise they won't.
Right, I'm not sure I've,
okay. But I'm not saying that it's
So-
not gonna fly, but.
So the idea was for us to be able, I've eaten outside, with my kids forever, and between the moths and the bugs and the flies and the mosquitoes. We never enjoyed a screened-in area to eat. It's, how can I say this? If those screens are down, they're basically, they're like, it's like a screened-in porch, for sure. But there's nobody behind me. And maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe I shouldn't.
Is it only on the one side or both?
Only on the one side.
I mean, it's not a permanent structure.
I mean, if they were fixed in place screens,
Right.
would we be worrying about it?
I'm not sure that I'm gonna focus on that particular
We
issue.
need to wrap this up because this is.
Yeah, I would like to know what you, Mr. Frank, propose, really. I mean, you say you're not
Okay,
married
so-
to your garage doors, that's a relief. What about,
So this is a big issue for me personally on the backsliding door is from the inside, what you don't get from the side is the sky. And the sky is beautiful. If you look at the pictures, it's all open blue sky. And by bringing the sliding glass doors up a little higher than the accordion doors were, the vistas from inside to the back and the field and the scenic reserve and the horse farm are magnificent. I'd hate to bring that down and lose that vista. One of the things that we did was we removed the windows on the side, so light leaking outside is virtually the same. And if it's a design issue, I invite you to come over and see what it looks like when you open the door and you look out upon the horse farm and the scenic easement from that kind of height of glass. And when it comes to the garage doors, if you want, I'll change them. I'll put back the crosshatch things. If there's a solution in between, like painting it black, if that's acceptable to the board, and it may or may not be, but when I walked over to Colet's house, his door was just a black door.
I mean, honestly, I was going to suggest just painting them black only because your front door is solid black. And I thought, well, it just then kind of recedes.
Paint the window?
No, well,
I would paint the windows if I had, his don't have windows. So when we looked at it, I'd paint the windows, but the windows let in a little light, and for me, light in the garage just helps with security.
I think, I think you adhering to the original plans on the garage door is the easiest thing for you to do and would probably be acceptable to all of us as number one.
I presume, I mean, I don't even remember what color they were proposed, if they were just.
I don't think they were ever established as a color.
I think they were.
Apparently neither was the house, so.
I was mortified when I saw him presenting.
Oh, so they're the garage doors. So they're traditional garage, like carriage house doors, essentially. I think you got to give in on that because we have to have some give and take here, and we got to wrap this up.
As I said to you, I need to wrap this up with you guys. I created.
Okay, so what else? The other?
Well, I also want to say in terms of process, I know we want to wrap it up tonight and we're not going to drag this out anymore. Or we do obviously have to talk about it, but I do think from an ARB standpoint of view, it's like you either build that, what's above, if we're going to not do that, or you have to come back with some drawings to us, which I am just letting you know in terms of the.
Frank, you're referring to the garage doors?
The garage doors.
I'll do, you tell me that you'll accept the old doors, I'll spend a fair amount of money and take these doors and throw them away and put on what was originally approved. My preference would be to paint it black. It saves me throwing out good garage doors. And listening and respecting your concern that these doors are a little different than the rest of the look of the house, which I understand you're thinking.
I mean, personally, I don't know. I don't know about black garage doors, to be honest.
No, I'm not a fan.
Because the house on Beach Lane that has the two black garage doors.
I think the doors need to be white if the house is white. I mean, you don't want these things to scream for any
So if
reason.
these were painted white, you would be.
No, if the original doors painted white were installed, I'd be
So-
fine with that.
So would we just ask for some specifications of
Well, we must have them. We must have the specifications.
On the originals?
the original
The
garage
issue
doors?
I have with painting those, what you have installed white, is
I don't like.
it's not gonna change you're gonna notice the design of it.
Yeah.
It's,
It's the design.
So let's,
I think the board is unanimous that the garage doors need to be changed. That's number one, or that's one thing.
okay, what's number two?
Well, listen, I know, is there anything, so we've talked about three things, the garage doors, the back slider, and the columns in the back. Does anyone have any objection issues with anything else? We talked about the railings, we talked about a little bit about roofing, we talked about, there's obviously the color of the house, but just for the benefit of the applicant, their doors, windows don't match, how does the board feel? You go back to the photos, are there any other things that this board feels that merit consideration for it all to be altered?
I think the changes in the fenestration are not anything that really would merit changing back to what was originally proposed. That would be a case of it substantially conforms in my mind. Yeah.
Well, that's big for me, and that's where, even on the garage, instead of the concept of painting it or trying to find a solution, I mean, as I said to you, I will abide by whatever conclusion we come to today.
Oh, so I think the other two things are the columns on the porch, which I could kind of live with. And the sliding glass door in the center portion of the back, I could go either way on it. I don't like it, but who's going to see it?
The whole project is massive.
Yeah, and it looks massive.
And it is massive. And for me, really beyond the garage doors is the pool house. And I think that's the only other aspect of it that I would focus, and these sliders, but.
What would you do with the pool house?
So by the way, I didn't paint the pool house.
No, I know you didn't.
Because we didn't put in the sliders, although they were originally approved, but we stopped all work until we can get in front of you. And again, from my point of view, that's about respecting the process. Once we understood the significance of your board.
Right. So in other words, see, when we originally approved this, and this was on the south side, it's facing the north. Now it's doing the opposite. It's facing that basically ag reserve area of the farm, of the horse farm. So in my mind, had we been presented with this, which we never really did approve, the fireplace wasn't part of it. There was a whole change there. So.
Oh, that's a fireplace?
That is a fireplace.
Oh, my God.
Oh, so it's also, this whole use of that area is facing the farm.
It's facing the farm. Before that, we had it blocking the farm.
Right.
So when.
See what I mean?
I see exactly what you mean. I didn't realize it was fire. So let's do this. So as everyone agreed that the garage doors have to be gone?
Yes.
Back to original painted white. Okay, let's do a little poll here. How about on the columns, the massive columns on the back of the house? Frank? Yes or no?
I could, I'd be willing to live with that, I think.
Okay, I'd be willing to live with it too, Esperanza.
I don't oppose those.
Diane?
It's okay.
Okay, so the columns
It's
stay.
extensive and.
Okay, now let's go to the sliding glass door. Frank?
I'd like to see it changed.
Okay, I think it's jarring. I now think it should be changed too.
It just needs to be brought in with scale. And listen, I get it that it's gonna bring down your view of the sky a little bit, but to be fair, that's what was approved.
Yeah.
The height of that door is what was in the resolution with this board approved. And the board approved it for a reason, because that sliding door unit should conform proportionately with the rest of the fenestration on the house. So I think, what I would prefer, I realize this is gonna take another step, I would prefer you come back with a revised elevation, because the issue is your whole other window package, which mostly has been changed, and I will say, lucky for you, we're not objecting to any of the other windows.
Well, if you go back to.
Windows and doors, so I'm just saying, if you were to put what was approved back in there, I'm not sure it's gonna work, because all the other windows have changed. So I think you need to come back with a revised sliding unit that's lower. And I would like to see reestablish that datum line, just the way it bumps up and it doesn't, it's not in conformity with elevation wise. Can we go back to the elevation?
Yeah, real quick, this door here, these three are the same line at 8 foot. This one is just the one that's taller, and basically this door and that door are exactly the same, just taller. So, I mean, if you match the height of.
And what is
elevation of
what is
that-
the height of the,
9 feet.
Yeah, 9.
9?
So let's finish our poll here before we, so
Yeah.
Esperanza, on the doors,
Yes, I agree.
you agree that Diane on the doors, change or stay?
I'm really sympathetic, really, I say this, I'm really sympathetic to your plight, but it'll make a difference. It will make a big difference.
We're not asking for structural changes. We're not asking to raise the height and all of a sudden where you've got some LVL header where you've got to reframe and do everything. And let me just ask the builder, so are there any and also with the columns, I realize like, we're not asking you to reestablish the column patterns, which would have, if you put in the two like columns that are right now blocking those doors,
right
there, if we asked you to put those in, then you would have had to rip up the whole terrace and then put in change your foundation. We're not asking for that. So get back to my question. So if you were to make that sliding unit, I'm not asking maybe it to be wider, but maybe just see how it proportionally, if you were to, if proportionally it worked better for you to increase it by a foot, but lower, is there a structural column right up against it?
Yeah, I think there is a column to the right and left of that.
Okay, well,
Then
just
just lower
come
it.
back to us with
Okay.
something.
And so the last issue is the pool house. Esperanza, your view? Because you've been there and seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that had we really had the chance to review that, I'm not sure that the relocation as it is existing would have been approved. I can't speak for the entire board. I think that would be
But does he need to deal with it now?
I think it's built, I can't, it's too far gone.
What's to the south of the lot? So we know it's on the north.
It's
What's-
Farrell Farm.
It's a farm. Diane, what's your
It's
view
the
on
horse farm.
on the pool house? It's a horse farm.
I would love to actually see it with my own eyes, you know. It's,
And it doesn't have the doors or anything there as yet, as Mr. Frank indicated, they hadn't put their sliders that go in there, correct?
Correct.
I don't mean to jump Diane, but I like her, what she was saying, but we haven't talked about whether we'd want it painted.
Well, do we want it at all? I mean, let's just deal with, do we want it at
Okay.
all? I mean, does he have to move it or does he have to tear it down or can it stay where it is? That's really the issue.
I mean, this has a basement and everything.
Yeah, I think it's such a
I'm not-
massive thing. It stays.
It has to stay.
Okay, Frank is,
Without going to the site, I think I'm fine to it because it's actually, if there's a farm that's like an open field, it's actually backing away from the farm.
okay.
So in terms of its massing, its location, can we just look at the survey?
Diane, what was your view?
without,
It's hard for you.
yeah, it's hard to.
You're welcome
hard
to come
Appreciate that,
To the site as well,
but I
whenever.
think, I mean, I agree with Esperanza.
Okay, so then the real issues are the sliding glass door in the center, the back facade and the garage doors. Is there anything else we've got to deal with? Because we've been on this for an hour.
Yeah,
It does kind of merit. It's a lot of changes.
and I knew it would be a long process, as it has been already. Is that it for the house?
That's it for me, I think.
That's it for me.
Okay,
Okay.
could we just talk about the scenic easement for a moment? And then we'll let you go. Or we'll, close this up. When I was there, I noticed there's irrigation there.
Yes.
And
Temporary.
yes, I
Yeah, it's above ground,
realized because
temporary,
it's
yeah.
above ground. You also planted in the far corner?
3 trees.
Northeast corner.
Yeah, because there's a tangle and a mess behind me and,
You don't like the tangle and the mess? We're in the country.
I sort of liked it, but not everybody, I liked it. So the idea was if you put up a few of those and they grew, you'd.
Right. Well, it's a bit of a problem because I don't believe you're meant to plant in the scenic easement. It's meant to stay in its natural state. So Daniel here can better speak to that or counsel, but what was suggested, we had an earlier discussion about this, is perhaps we would get natural resources to pay a visit and evaluate that area.
I would say removing those trees is not an issue at all. And I hate to, can I would like to, so if your advice is to remove those 4 trees that I put in that created a little shielding back there, because it's not appropriate on the scenic easement, I'm happy to remove those trees.
Okay, well, I think I would prefer to hand that over to Natural Resources or to the planning department.
I'm happy to remove the trees.
Okay. They may be fine.
I think that's the best. I just wanted to.
Schedule with Mark Abramson to go.
That's easy.
That's the best,
I think just see what he says first. I won't-
Sure. Okay.
It's
Yeah,
just
we don't
that-
want to disturb topsoil unnecessarily. I think that's kind of the,
Well,
I didn't
that's
realize
the
they had
whole
been
thing.
planted in there, so.
This was a whole farm field, right? We have to keep this in mind. And so, yes, it was possible to develop it, but this scenic easement was a significant portion of it that must remain undisturbed or farmed if you want to.
Yeah, that's a non-issue. I'll have Mark
Okay.
Yeah.
give us his 2 cents and whatever
Yeah.
he advises.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll submit a memo to the board.
So the only thing I can say is that I'm pretty much, I'm way at the end of my financial rope here. That the house cost me 50% more through the pandemic than I expected it to. I know that I have to make certain adjustments to finalize this. I would appeal the sliding doors in the back. It's a big deal. I have, forget the view and the vistas in the back and how gorgeous that sky looks at night, that I'll lose, but we put up steel. I can't imagine what the cost would be. I don't know how I can afford to throw out those doors and put back what was originally approved. Because that's the only thing I can think of to come back to you with. Because I'm reluctant to come back next month or next week, whatever. And if you say, your idea is no good. I have, my hands are tied by my bank. And if I don't get a CO, I don't keep the house. So anything within reason, and like the garage doors, I can throw them out. I can afford to mentally live with that and financially live with that. The trees in the back that shouldn't have been planted, which I wasn't aware of, I'm happy to take out. But I would make a huge appeal to maybe coming to the house, looking at the slide. Nobody sees the sliders but me. Nobody. There's no neighbor to the left. There's no neighbor to the right. And it may not be the ideal design, but for me, it shows the whole vista and the beauty of the neighborhood. Financially, to change it, I don't know how I can do that.
What is the rough number to change it?
I mean, just to order that door and get it to the site, we're talking $25,000.
It would be $50,000 plus to throw these doors out, lower the thing, put them in. I think the garage, which is expensive also, but I know that it's a consternation, and I'm willing to. I'd rather changing the garage is something I can accept to do. I think that could be viewed as it doesn't go with the house, but the glass in the back, if you came into the house and opened the doors and saw the ceiling and the view, it's part part of what we wanted. It's the whole reason we bought this piece of property.
You have us between a rock and a hard place, frankly.
Yeah, I mean,
It's-
you know, I kind of, I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt on a lot of things here. But the fact that you planted evergreens in a scenic easement, I mean, a guy of your wealth and sophistication should have hired people to advise you rather than walking in the
Well,
dark.
you would think LaGuardia Design would
Yeah,
have.
and
LaGuardia put
this
them
is
in.
really, this
So-
is the final,
That's
this
surprising.
sends me over the top because I can't imagine how you could have done that.
Well,
Now I'm coming to think that there are people that work in businesses in this town that are just not respecting or not looking hard enough
No.
at these things.
Well, you know what, I don't want to fault LaGuardia either. I think they've done a great job in making the house look natural to its environment. Why they put the 4 trees.
But you just told us why. You didn't want to look at the brambles and the overgrowth. So I mean,
Well, that was what he said. It will shield it later down the road. And I was like, fine. I mean.
well, I think the only thing to do here is we either all go out and look at these doors or we make a decision on.
Come look at the doors in the house and and what you see when you're in the house looking out. And the fact that when you stand back of the house, there's nobody that is going to see this.
But what are we doing tonight?
Well,
I mean-
you're not going to get your C of O if we go look at the doors tonight.
Right.
That's the problem.
Listen, I don't know.
Is there a?
This is what I'm gonna say in terms of the money question, is like, I get it that houses go over budget, they're expensive and people get stretched thin, but it's like the whole siding of the house is done in Versatex. And I asked myself, how much money did you save doing Versatex? And now you're saying you can't change the door?
Okay, so Frank, let me just say this, in fairness, somebody said wealthy. I'm not a,
No, we're not here to discuss your net worth.
Not an insignificant project.
no, and I know that. And by the way, my life savings is tied up in this house. I had a house for 30 years that was a modest house. And my goal is to have something that I can retire in. And I was willing to put all my resources into this house. And that's where I am now. But Frank, you asked a question that I'd like to answer, the Versatech. The Versatech isn't a cheap material. And I have Fred here, but.
Real quick though, the polyash material, it wasn't that it was saving him any money, it just wasn't increasing the cost of the cedar.
And it was
keeping him
available.
on budget, basically.
It was available. at the
Because,
time.
I mean, we bid on it for a year prior to actually starting construction.
Okay, so it's.
Sorry, what was the last statement you made?
I said we were bidding on this prior to actually starting construction.
Bidding on the materials?
No, on the on the whole project, yeah.
To get the
Once-
trade.
Once I got the plans.
To be the contractor. So, 2 questions. What are we doing tonight is one of them.
Yeah.
Are we making a resolution or are we going to visit the site? I don't think it would hurt to go see the site.
I think it's the fairest thing to do, right?
I don't think we can do the resolution.
I think if we see it.
We can't do it.
With that door.
The only resolution we could do, sorry. to interrupt.
It's very hard to make a determination, with all the considerations without actually witnessing it, I think.
I agree.
We don't
I think
really
we
know
should see
So
it.
let's go see it. Let's go see it. We don't even have to go inside. We don't care about the inside. We just care about what it looks like. from the
We know what the vistas are here. It's okay.
So
That's
it's
why we
gonna-
go outside.
So it's gonna be, if you're talking about now, it's dark, there's no lights?
No, we can't just leave the meeting and come back.
Oh, okay.
We'll go in the next week or so. But you're
Fine.
gonna have to come back in front of us. We're gonna have to discuss this at another meeting.
We would have to put this on the agenda
For
of January, what's the meeting in January?
6.
I know, Julie, don't look at us like that.
So I have January 11th and January 25th.
11th.
So they're both full, so
Well, I think-
I'm gonna have to make adjustments.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So, but it all depends when you guys get there and.
well, between now and
Is it the
January
kind of
11th.
property we can just pop in, walk around?
Yes, there's a
no gate.
temporary construction gate. that
Please
you
don't put a driveway gate
There's no
without,
gate. I'm-
without coming to us first, okay?
I won't do it without coming back and getting your approval.
Okay.
Promise
Oh,
you
and
that.
one thing I forgot to mention, I know we're trying to wrap this up, but there was some questions raised about generator on the modification. That request for a generator, which had been approved as part of the original application, it's been removed from the application at this point going forward. So
Okay, I
if
was
that
going to ask.
materializes down the road,
Good.
it'll be a new application coming back, but the goal here is to.
Modification anyway, because it was being relocated, right?
Correct. So that,
So
I
we
know
just
there's some
took that-
question
I wanted
raised
to
because it
ask
wasn't
you.
on the survey, and I wanted to bring it to you because it's not there.
Okay, good,
So
because I did
There is no generator,
see it
no gate. We'll deal with all that,
at
hopefully,
a later time.
years
Okay,
down the road.
Okay, so
Okay.
we will go look at your property for the holidays probably, or right around the holidays, and we will meet you again at our next meeting that.
I will send you,
I'm sorry?
I will send you a notification.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and
Thank
For
you.
your time.
understanding.
Sorry, I was
And I'm still gonna touch base with Mark. We'll just keep that process going too.
All right, moving quickly.
So what happened to, what happened to 64 Kings Point Road, the fence?
We're not there yet. So next is Kevin Wong, 433 Hands Creek Road, tax map number 300-118-1-59. Thank you for your patience. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. I don't think we'll take so long with you, okay? Mr. Wong, you are back with us here. This is, originally this application was for, it was for fencing to be extended to 7 feet 6 inches around the property. It was depicted on a survey. And when we were discussing this, the issue of the driveway gate also came up, which is a solid driveway gate. I didn't visit the site again because I assume nothing has changed.
No.
So we're dealing with the driveway gate and the fencing, and you have submitted a proposal for a different driveway gate design.
Yes.
Which is at 5 feet 10 inches. And let me go to that piece. Hold on. And then that would attach to the fencing along the front would also be 7 feet?
Yeah, you could see it in the elevation where the higher
It is.
portion of is the deer fence.
Yes, but since the driveway gate is 5 feet 10 inches, it was hard to appreciate whether the deer fencing was also then going to be what you proposed originally, which was the 7 feet.
Yes, it is.
6 inch, 7.5 feet.
Yes.
It is, okay.
Mhm.
And this is along the, it's facing the street, in other words, obviously. The driveway gate is a little bit on an angle. There's a scenic easement, which is about a 40-foot deep
I think so.
scenic easement. Oh, here it is right in front of me. 40-foot deep scenic easement.
Where's the gate?
And there's a reserve area. And the gate is,
Can you blow
can
that
you
up?
zone in? Yeah, zone in, zoom in. The driveway gate. So the driveway sort of curves around. Thank you, Daniel. It's really, the driveway gate is really visible only when you're coming, I guess, if that's south on Hands Creek Road. But I think what you're proposing is much better than what is there. I don't know if you have the picture of the existing driveway gate from the previous review, but it was just very solid, natural wood, but solid wall of a driveway gate at, I think it was like 7 feet. I want to say it's pretty tall.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah. Okay. So, so yeah, let's take a look at and I know that we had a kind of a lengthy discussion about the clearing in the back because your property is over cleared and you had conversations with Mark Abramson.
Yes.
You have a letter from him here, from last year, which is a plan to revegetate. And that's what you've been doing? You've been following?
I haven't yet because I was gonna do it after the
After the
renovation,
fencing.
yeah, but I also submitted the re-veg plan that he's approved with this package, which
This
you
is-
should have, yeah.
Because I guess there was a question that you had planted some like a bunch of trees in the back
Towards the
and
very
the
back, yeah.
fencing was going to be behind, no,
It was,
Yeah,
it
please
was,
explain.
the fencing was going to, it had enclosed the new trees, but I'm now proposing because I think one of the things that comments from the last meeting was that you wanted me to move the deer fence off of the property line, not to enclose the entire property.
yes.
So what the proposed survey is showing is that the deer fencing is now moved 40 feet inwards from the back of the property line.
So is this plan, I know this is the survey, but this plan doesn't demonstrate that, or does it?
The proposed survey does. You can see that it's the
Okay,
green line
this
on
is the
there.
proposed re-veg plan. This is the front driveway gate.
You could revegetate with pine needles and leaves?
No, you revegetate and then the mulch is leaves or pine needles. Right?
So what's the project limiting fence for clearing? The second fence inside?
So,
There's an addition that's occurring at this time, so.
Okay, so that's for temporary construction.
temporary, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's good. So you're going to bring the rear yard fencing in.
Yes,
Okay,
40 feet.
so that's depicted on that survey that we're looking at on the screen.
That's correct.
Can you zoom in a bit, please? Thank you. So that's the green line,
Mhm.
okay? Okay, and then it follows along.
Move the fence, can.
Okay, so then it follows along the purple line, yes?
Correct.
Purple line to the front, right to the scenic easement,
Here's the road. This is the.
Yep. And then it connects to the fence or to the gate.
to the gate, and then up, okay, away from the,
This would be,
so
how far is the scenic?
go down, can I see the lower portion of the survey?
40 feet from the street.
Okay, good, okay. So you're leaving some sections of your property
Oh,
open?
Correct.
Great, good.
77.
So the real consideration here is that you'd have 7.5-foot deer fencing facing this Hans Creek Road. It is
40 feet back.
40 feet back, so there's a wooded area
In front of it, yeah.
left, really natural.
And it's mesh fence.
And then a 5-foot 10-inch gate, almost as big. No, this is what is now being proposed. The existing driveway gate is taller.
And solid.
How
And
tall is the existing one? I know we've discussed.
it's like
this
7,
I think it's at 7'6".
yeah, it's
before. It's quite tall.
quite tall.
And what is the material of the deer fence? Mesh?
It's wire mesh.
It's wire mesh.
And the material of the gate is wood?
It's the cedar that you're seeing there, yeah.
Okay, so it's nice.
Cedar with mesh, yes?
With mesh in between, yes.
Oh, that's what those little hatch, okay, that's
Yes.
what, so it kind of matches the deer fence.
Okay, yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
So it's more rural, more, it is much better than what is
Yeah,
there.
much nicer.
It's okay.
I mean, it seems pretty far from the street, is it not? I mean, realize it's visible, but
It's,
like,
by the time, see, if the scenic easement is 40 feet, the driveway gate is actually probably anywhere between 40 and 60.
I think the survey says there's something like 77 feet from the property line.
The gate is 77 feet from the,
Oh, right, you have it here.
from the,
Property line, which means it's further from the street.
Yeah, so it is fairly far back. Yeah, and I think
it's
with
fine.
the,
It's pretty far back.
with the new design, I think it's much better.
Yeah,
I mean,
much
would I
better.
like a lower gate? Always, but you're trying to keep animals out,
Yes.
like everyone else in this town.
I think we're fine.
I think we're, yeah, the depiction of the walkway gate is the existing driveway gate has the pedestrian gate just to the left of it. Is
Yes,
that
if you go
correct?
back to the elevation, you can see it. So it's just to the left if you're looking from the street.
There
So
you
it's
go.
that gate there, the little one.
So it's a continuum of three gates.
Good, and so the design would look like this drawing, not the picture that is depicted, which looked like the slats are a bit wider on the pedestrian gate.
It'll match,
It'll
the
match.
slats will, of the
Yeah,
pedestrian gate
okay,
will
so it
match
looks
the,
seamless.
it'll look seamless, yeah.
Right. It has a call box. It's all within the property. All right,
Okay.
Yeah, is it operable? Or are you gonna walk down the driveway every time someone hits call box?
I'm sorry?
no, it's automatic. I mean, it's
Electric, right?
It's electric.
electric.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Mr. Wong. You're catching me in a good mood.
Well, it's almost Christmas.
Happy holidays to you. I make a motion to approve the application as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
You're on your
you.
way. Thank you. Thank you for coming back with us. All right, next is Elizabeth Marie O'Neill. Tax map number 300-39-2-19, 64 Kings Point Road in Springs, East Hampton, and this is yours, Frank.
On my way to the applicant. So this is an application for approving an as-built fence and gate for the property in the Clearwater section of Springs on Clearwater Road. My understanding from the applicant's letter is that when they purchased this property, this was a pre-existing fence and gate the property, but had not been approved. If you can go through the photos, but essentially the survey will show that the property is surrounded on all sides of the property line by a 6-foot stockade fence and a 6-foot gate, and it also juts in a little bit that way at the driveway. But go back to that, Dan. Oh, that's good. So, orienting yourself from that photograph, there's Kings Point Road. You can see the driveway on the right where the gate is, and it's just there's a fence that goes around the entire property. Can we go back to the photographs, please? I do want to point out one thing about the gate.
That's the property with the trailer?
Yeah, the trailer's in the property. Go back to the photograph of the gate. One more. Oh, so that's from the neighbor, just for your note. So there's a 6-inch gap underneath the stockade fence. So actually the top of the gate is technically 6 foot 6 inches above grade. I think that it's pretty self-explanatory about what's there. I think at this point, it'd be good to hear from the applicant. If you'd like to introduce yourself and.
Yes, Mark Catalano for the applicant, Elizabeth O'Neill. So that's pretty much it. Yeah, this property she bought in 2020. The stockade fencing looks like it was put up at the front in around 2001. I mean, maybe before that, but from the GIS, all I can see is 2001. It was not there in 1984, but there were stockade fences along the sides going back to 84. The gap you're talking about, yeah, I mean, it's 6 feet on both sides of the driveway, and then it dips where the actual driveway is, so that's a 6-foot dip. But if you stand on either side of it, the natural grade, I measure that at 6 feet.
Yeah.
We measure from the ground up.
Right. That's the fence. I mean, it's been there for a long time. There are 3 or 4 along the same road, similar along that have front yard stockade fences. There's one other thing, I wanted to know if I could add this into the application now, rather than come back. There's an interior fence to the right of the house, which is also a wood fence that's taller than 6 feet. So it's like a 63-inch high fence within a decorative piece on top of that, which goes to like 74 inches, and then there are posts that go up to 76 inches.
Right.
So the building department's not going to approve that, so we'd have to add that into the application. Can I modify the current application to include those?
You would have to come back to us I'm not sure administratively how it works. I wouldn't want you to, pay the fee again, so it would have to amend it, but we could probably include that in some resolution for it. The biggest thing for me, and I think people, if they drive by, will see this, the surrounding properties do not have a front yard fence and gate. There is a property across the street. This happens to be the intersection where we have seen, this is the third application I think we have seen. There's one directly across the street where we had a fence on a berm and we had to move it back to the house. And then 2 doors down from that, there was a fence and a gate. So it seems to be an active intersection for us this year. But I did not observe, I observed one fence that had a 6-foot stockade fence for its rear yard, but depending on, I wasn't actually sure across the street and down a little bit if that was the rear yard or it was the side yard or the front yard, but anyways, I don't even know if that's a legal fence. So my view of this, generally speaking, in Clearwater is that there aren't 6-foot stockade fences that are surrounding the entire property, and particularly on a public facing street. So to cut to the chase of it, I'm not inclined to approve the fencing in the front yard and the gate.
I concur. It looks like you're in a prison camp. Terrible.
It looks like a fort, no?
So, when you're saying your objection is the entire property circled, if some of the other parts were not stockade fence, that's irrelevant.
Your rear lot line and side lot lines, you can build as of right, what's before us really, aside from the non-conforming there next to the house, what's really before us from a review standpoint of view is what's in the front yard and the gate, and would be approved. We know as of right, you can build, the property owner could build 4 feet fence and a 4-foot high gate. Generally speaking, in that neighborhood, they're pretty open front yards. And to me, it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, we're very much against properties that are 100% fenced in, but.
And it's not a very big.
Yeah, but the front property, the front stockade fence is just, to me, it's pretty offensive.
So, I don't know if the applicant wants to come back with some solution, but I don't think it's gonna get a lot of reception. I would suggest the owner to basically live with building as of right, and would they have to come back to, depending on the distance from the street, a 6-foot high fence that would have to replace in the back of the Airstream that is not streetward of the house foundation wall.
Well, it's not it's over 6 feet. Any fence over 6 feet requires you guys to approve.
Actually, anything over 4 feet in the front.
But anywhere else in the property, if it's over 6, that's before you.
Right.
So that's why I would need you to approve that.
That section that looks newer, is that what you're?
That's the one, the one that's.
So
we wouldn't 2016, the other fence.
Unless other people feel, I don't think that's gonna get approved by us. It's not. So.
Wait, which one?
Basically everything that's photographed.
So the interior fence, which is just like 6 feet, 4 inches high?
The interior fence cannot exceed 6 feet there. It's,
No, I mean, it can with approval. I'm just saying it's,
How far
we're not on the front yard. That's not a front
not,
yard.
but I personally would not approve anything more than 6 feet. I don't see the
It's
reason.
facing the street.
It's facing the street.
Yeah.
It's, on this,
It's
I can
solid.
show you the survey.
It's behind it's like it's behind the front of the house.
Just behind the front facade of the
That's
house?
right. It's
in line with the front of the house.
here.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the required front yard starts here. This is fence here.
Generally speaking,
And it's only on that side. The other side doesn't have that?
there is another one. It's a little further back. You can see it on.
Okay, so it's the same style.
No, the other one's a stockade on the other side.
Oh,
The
okay.
regular 6-foot stockade. So
So this one goes over about 4 inches or 5 inches. The posts go 5 inches higher than 6 feet.
That's half a foot, so that's too much.
the fence has to be,
I mean, there's so much fencing here, you gotta bring it all into conformity.
so my question is, for this board, is do we, and this is where I could use council's guidance, is a fence that is in line, is that in the code, or is that something, is it in the code that they can build as of right, the fence to the right of that, like running from the side property line to the house that's facing the street, that if that were to be 6 feet, does that require our approval?
Because it was because it would be technically in the side yard, is that what you're asking?
I think is it code with the.
My understanding, I thought that it might need our approval, but
No, not 6 feet. If it's 6 feet in the required front yard, which is 30 feet in this case for accessory structures, then yes, if it's 6 feet. If it's 6 feet beyond that, within that, then no. If it's 6 feet even, anywhere northward of that line,
That's right, that's right.
you don't have to, it's not your jurisdiction.
so they could build a 6-foot fence.
An inch behind the front of the house.
Not even
No, no,
closer.
no, he's saying within 30 feet of the front property line, across and shielding the whole house in a 6-foot fence.
Oh, I don't think so.
I don't think that's permissible.
So the code
I
says,
really could use council's guidance on this.
looking at the code.
Yeah, we're going.
That's never been my understanding of what the front yard is.
We just haven't had that, so.
If Master used to talk.
Mm,
I got it here, John.
okay.
I mean, bottom line, I'd be willing to entertain 6 feet of that fence if it weren't as of right. If the owner needs approval for 6 feet, or to go above 4 feet there, I'd be willing to entertain it. That the fence would return at 6 feet back to the house. You know?
I'm only asking really just for 5 inches of posts above what's as of right for that fence in the inside.
Why do the posts have to be so much taller?
What?
Why are the posts so much taller?
It's just the design. I can show you some photographs if you like.
You can't, let's just go back to the photograph.
I didn't see that, no. It
The
wasn't
picture's confusing.
I couldn't appreciate it from the picture.
Can I say, I don't know if it's relevant to this, but there are a bunch of signs on the front of the door.
That's a permit for the pool that was built.
All right.
Signs on the front door.
So we're referring to the
We're referring to the
solid
newer fence.
portion that
This
has
is
a
like
baluster.
5 feet here at the top, and then this goes up.
That's not 5 feet.
No,
that's
down
it.
here.
No, it's not. It's in line with the 6-foot stockade fence.
No, the part, the solid part I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's
No,
what,
I can't.
that's
You can
what,
visually see that it's as,
Blow
Did you
that
measure
up, Dan.
I did not go in there and measure it.
I did.
You tried it. Oh,
I'm sorry that,
you know, there was a picture right there. Go back, Dan. You
yeah,
can see the
he's
trailer.
zooming in.
Oh, it's that. It's got that.
the setback.
there's no way that's 5 feet.
Let me show you, let me just show you what I have.
Taller than the stockade.
Exactly.
I think
It's
you're saying
not-
the solid part is.
The solid part, solid
No,
part.
no, that's what I'm saying, is that the
Well,
solid part
is
is
not
like
5
it's
feet.
equivalent to the
No.
stockade.
All
The
right,
solid part's not 5
it's
feet.
5'3".
I I'm sorry.
And then the next part, then I'm telling you, the next part then,
It's over 50.
Did you measure just the panel or from the grade?
No,
from the grade, and then the darker part goes up
Oh,
to
look at the fence code.
76.
But to us, it's all the same fence.
This is within the
decorative part.
I'm just trying to be accurate.
Yeah,
Oh, right.
but I think you should measure
See,
it.
I don't see through
It looked,
2-2.
I apologize, I didn't contact you about this one. I realized it would be Fort Knox to get notice, so.
So you couldn't even get in? You could only take this picture over the fence?
I wasn't quite sure what was beyond the fence.
That's the one.
So let's table this and go back and measure it, right?
So I can go back and measure it, but basically, you know, if the owner wants to do 6 feet, we can look into whether that's required for our approval.
Yeah, without
In that section.
In that section, in that location at 6 feet,
Yes.
whether that's as of right, I think the board would probably be amenable to it. If that is required board approval.
I don't think it does, but I'm just, we're talking about the top piece, basically.
You're not gonna get above 6 feet.
The survey shows
telling you
50
now.
feet back.
Well, then I wouldn't need to come here at all then.
But either way.
Yeah,
I'll show the
you
survey.
come before the board to get approval for the front, and we're not approving it.
I understand that. So now we're just talking about the interior fence. That's all at this point we're talking about.
Okay,
So,
Focus on the stockade fencing that you already expressed, but I think as well, that you're not willing to
Yeah.
approve that, right? I'm of the same mind that anything enclosing the
so how
property
does
in
this
that
work
way.
with a resolution? Are we rejecting it?
No, there's
I
no,
mean,
yeah, no, I think it's incomplete. We're going to ask,
So anywhere after that?
you're denying?
So anything after that?
No, I think.
Unless, I would call it an incomplete. and
I
just-
would call it an incomplete so they can come back and propose something else. I mean, we're not denying something.
It doesn't say front yard.
Let's do that. That seems unnecessary at this point.
Most of the time, half the time, I would think if we issue an incomplete letter and say, come back with something that we, they just go and build that.
Oh, it's required.
Well, the fact of the matter is, they're building a school, they're gonna need to close out a CO. This is gonna be flagged eventually anyway, probably. So why is it before us now?
Well, then their representative is aware that they can't build above 6 feet.
But if it's at that.
So they are aware that that's not conforming. So I
They're
don't,
looking to legalize the stockade fencing,
So you always get 6 feet as right?
right?
are you talking about that?
I'm just
left of
talking
the
about
trailer
all of
stockade?
this, yeah.
Yeah, well, if it's not in.
No, not that section. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the rest of it. I'm just gonna obviate that new section right now. I'm not gonna talk
Okay.
about that.
The second
I'm
one.
talking about the rest of it.
Over 6
Right,
feet.
so we can either deny it or issue an incomplete letter.
I think an incomplete would be appropriate if they would like to
Yeah, so if it's gonna
propose
go over 6.
a
but they
different
can. They've
solution
got 2
to
feet
their
play with
fencing.
the code, According to the code. Right, go up to 8.
Like, cut it down.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, but the ARB has.
But
I mean, it's been there forever.
Okay, that's all.
They're not
I'm
gonna
sorry.
They're kind of
Yeah.
expressing their
like,
willingness.
I think we should make it clear to the owner that we're not willing to entertain about anything that's basically more than as of right at this point.
Okay, can you, maybe you guys want to?
Right, well, as of right, I mean, the code speaks to the required front yard, which is not necessarily the front yard from the house forward. It's what the code says you have to be set back. So if your house is 80 feet from the road, but your required front yard is 30 feet, anything from 30 feet back, as of right, they could go to 6 feet. They, by permission of this board, they can go to 8 feet if you were so inclined. Anything in front of that is 4 feet, basically. on the right.
Okay, so that's why I say
So,
let's talk about what's in the front yard.
So again, my position is I'm not willing to approve anything more than what's permissible as of right as a property owner.
For any fencing?
Well, that gives a lot in this property,
No, I mean, we're going to be cutting down the front fence to 4 feet, right?
but I'm saying I'm allowing anything that's as of right.
But that's, I don't need you to allow that. What I'm saying is,
Right.
This is the
We're not gonna
bizarre
approve
conversation.
anything, we're not gonna approve anything above 4 feet.
okay, can I just make sure we know we're on the same page that, as John just said, the fence, the one on the right, 6 feet of that is as of right. Right now, it's a little bit more than 6 feet. You're not willing to entertain that?
No.
Just the fence on the right?
No, we're not willing to, I'm not willing to entertain anything above 6 feet. I don't,
I mean, you do that all the time. You grant 8-foot fences all the time.
That's.
not in a lot like this.
Necessarily.
I mean, we might in some place like Hands Creek Road where it's like a acre and a half. This is not that kind of a
We
problem.
rarely see properties that are 100% fenced in, and we are very negative when we do.
Not to mention, this is a solid wall-like.
It's a pretty tight community.
It's not,
I mean,
it's not,
Well, we're gonna rectify the front yard part. I mean, we're agreeing to do that.
okay.
So now we're just
you're-
talking about something you can't even see from the road anyway.
Oh, you can, particularly once you bring it down to 4 feet. You're gonna see that anything above 6 feet. Listen, I don't mean to rush it, but I think it's pretty clear from this board that we're gonna issue an incomplete letter and say that, I mean, unless you want a denial of the application, your property, we're not willing to entertain anything that's more than legally permissible for front, side, the fence going to the it's pretty cut and dry.
All right.
Let's go.
So, okay, let me just get a good handle on this. You've already said you're willing to reduce the height of the fencing in the front yard.
Yeah, we'll have to get a
4
C
feet,
of O for the
right,
house,
okay.
yes.
I need to, either see it on the survey, or the pictures to know exactly what we're talking about. So then that would be 4 feet.
Right. So
And then from which point on, yeah, please, from which point on would it then be?
So 30 feet from here to here would have to be 4 feet. This
4
is all 4 feet,
4
going
feet.
back 4 feet to 30 feet.
Mhm.
I just want to say that for a CO, the building department is not going to require an updated survey of, and they might, but it's not within our realm of like to whether we need an updated survey. We're just handing this to the building department and say, does it meet what the ARB has not approved anything that is beyond what's legally permissible. So at this point, we're telling you it's in the hands of the building department.
Because you're saying because what they're gonna do what's as of right.
Yeah, we don't need a survey.
If you're not going to approve anything beyond anything that I'm asking for, then I don't, and I don't need to come back. And building department will just have me cut down the fence, that's all. But all I'm asking is not to cut down the one fence to the right of the house, which is just slightly over the as of right height. And it's not on the road even. I mean, you're allowing gates that are.
It's not right on the road, but it is quite visible from the road
it's
once
in
you bring it
proximity.
down.
And it is.
I don't, maybe each person needs to state individually how they feel about that. My vote is no.
I'd like to hear it.
Above 6 feet.
And it is 6 feet, 4 inches, 5 inches?
It doesn't matter.
No, I just want to know what
It matters
is,
because
6
I'm
and a
asking
half.
for the relief. It's.
There's no relief. We don't give relief, but it's
Well, that's
6
what
and a
it is.
half, and it's 6.5 feet?
The solid part's slightly over 5 feet, then it goes to 74 inches of the decorative part, and then the posts go to 76 or 77 inches at the top. So it's like 6 feet, 5 or 6 inches at the post, the 8 posts that go across.
Yeah, okay. So we will grant a builder's allowance of 1 inch or 2 on a 6-foot fence because the builder installed it wrong or the fence guy installed it wrong, but you're a half a foot over that with your posts and the decorative panel.
It's more than that. Listen, this is in the hands of the building department.
I'm not in favor of giving you any relief.
Me neither.
Okay.
This is in the hands of the building department. You just got to conform with the
Fair
rest.
enough.
So we leave it to the building department.
It's not approved. I don't know if you don't want a denial or just leave it as an incomplete and
Well, make
go
the
back
motion,
again.
Frank. I would say that if that's what you're seeking to do, then you should make a motion.
No, I think the easiest thing is just to go back, is just to say, well, apparently this is over, so. This is a new one.
So what are we doing?
Are you actually walking out on us?
Oh, no, I was getting my stuff. I thought you were done.
Oh, okay.
I
Sorry.
mean, you said what you're.
Oh, okay.
You're not giving me any relief, so what am I gonna do?
I would administratively, I'll let you guys handle it. I don't, so if you want to put it as a denial, make a motion for a denial.
That's for you to do. That's not for them to do. You make the motion. Or
Let's just
leave
write
it as an incomplete.
We're leaving it as incomplete.
Second the motion.
Well, we don't need to make a motion for that. It's incomplete. Thank you. So Anthony Amarato, certificate of occupancy. Anthony Amarato, tax map number 300-95-5-7, 16 Cedar Ridge Drive, East Hampton. This is yours, Frank, also.
Okay, so this is, let's bring up the photographs. We're gonna have a similar situation. This one hopefully is one. So this is an application for a certificate of occupancy for a property on Cedar Ridge Road in Springs, off of Springs Fireplace Road, about 200 yards. So the resolution, let's just go through the process. So there's a driveway gate facing the street. This is, I will say, a very well tended lot. So we'll just start, actually, just leave it on that. So the resolution says driveway gate, height of existing cedar wood gate and post shall be no greater than 5 feet. Every other horizontal panel to be removed while maintaining the existing top and bottom panels on the gate. The top of those posts conform to the 5-foot road rule. So this, my reading of this resolution is that this is conforming. Let's go to the rest. So it says deer fencing. So that's to the right. So it says existing deer fencing. It shouldn't say existing, but deer fencing and stockade fencing located on 3 sides of the resident, not to exceed 6 feet in height. We're gonna have to talk about the language of that. Okay, the deer fencing tucked into the shrubbery on the front side of the residence, not to exceed 6 feet in height. So basically it is allowing, in the survey, is showing 6 feet of fencing around the property, but not, the front is not on the property line. Keep going down. So to the left of the gate, you'll see the next one. It's deer fencing with these posts. The posts and the fence do not exceed 6 feet. Keep going. That is from the street to 6 feet, and keep going. Now, I did observe yesterday that these posts were 8 feet. I contacted the owner, and the owner very quickly had those cut down to 6 feet. I confirmed that those are now 6 feet. So those are in accordance. Keep going. Oh, I'm gonna have to show you the photograph. So what I discovered is, so it shows on the, let's go bring up the survey.
Yeah. This was my application about 1.5 years ago.
Was it? I was going to say.
Okay, so I want to ask you about this then. So, and I'm going to probably bring up the photos on.
I think it said Jonathan Foster when I looked it up.
Well, he left, and then it probably became.
Oh, okay.
Because I remember this property.
Okay.
So there are also, so the bottom line, the fencing around the property, the deer fencing and the stockade fencing conforms to as of right and the resolution. There are a couple of fences to the right, because it's a pool, they have to have a fence to enclose by, well, actually the second, a deer fence doesn't qualify. This one is a deer fence. So it has, if you zoom into the right, you'll see fences on either side, right, turning into the house.
Okay, those two sections.
I'm gonna have to show you this. Just give me a second. Bring this out, and then I'll have to show you this. Essentially, they're not stockade fences. They are at 5 feet, 5 inches. So they are neither stockade nor deer. They look like this. They do not exceed 6 feet in height.
They're board fence.
But they're also basically in the backyard, no?
Right, so what's going on?
So I just want to make sure in terms of the resolution that these were not, like they're building as a right. It's not listed in the resolution,
Fine.
but
Yeah. I think
this
that's fine.
appears to be built as a right.
It's fine.
Yeah,
So I believe that this property is in conformance.
okay. good.
So I make a motion to approve this application for a request for a certificate of occupancy and instruct staff to notify the building department that this is ready for a certificate of occupancy. Do I have a second?
Yeah.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, resolutions. 374 Main Street, tax map number 300-171-5-4, Drucker Residence, tax map number 300-62-7-2.4, Montauk Sunset Cottages, tax map number 300-20-2-13.1 and 13.2, 404 Montauk Highway, tax map number 300-189-1-6.1, 50 Northwest LLC, tax map number 300-91-1-20.3, and Matthew Wallier, tax map number 300-63-6-3. And that is it for the evening. This is the last meeting for our board in this year, 2023. We bid you all happy holidays, and our hearts go out to Kathy and her family again in this tragic moment in their lives. So thank you all. Thank you for all your work. Thank you, Daniel.
Ben, thanks, John.
John, happy retirement to you. Thank you, Julie. And I make a motion. Who makes a motion to close the meeting?
I make a motion to close this meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank